Chapter 301. Cough cough. Chen Hao stopped a little awkwardly. What made him feel conflicted was that the current scene had happened many times when he was in the secular world in order to increase Helian Wuzi's strength. But at that time, although Chen Hao also enjoyed it a little, his state of mind was still calm. But now, firstly, Chen Hao's body had completely matured. Secondly, he had no choice but to have that kind of experience with Tantai Lien in this life. The combination of these two factors directly caused Chen Hao to be unable to return to the state of mind he had when he ravaged Helian Wuzi. In addition, after more than 2 years, Helian Wuzi's place had become even more majestic and alluring, causing this guy to involuntarily increase the strength of his kneading. Of course, the most important reason was that this guy was too arrogant just now. Fortunately, when Chen Hao was a little embarrassed, Helian Wuzi directly pushed him away. With one hand covering her full breasts and the other rubbing her little butt, she sat up and glared at Chen Hao. She said in an extremely free and easy manner, "Since I've lost, I won't make things difficult for you. I'm going to cultivate, you can leave." Chen Hao was stunned. Soon after, his eyes revealed a touch of imperceptible gratification. He smiled slightly and said, "Little Wu is still the most sensible. Don't flatter me. After some time, I'll challenge you again. I'll look forward to it." After staring at Chen Hao and leaving, Helian Wuzi's free and easy expression suddenly changed. She didn't meditate to recover, but directly walked out of the cultivation room and into the bathroom. After quickly taking off her clothes, she lowered her head to check her red breasts that were kneaded. She cursed, "Bastard, bastard," but that cold gaze of hers wasn't cold at all. Instead, it carried a trace of joy after the reunion, as well as the feeling that made her body weak and hot just now. After coming out of Helian Wuzi's palace, Chen Hao directly returned to his own cultivation room. The battle lasted for a full 2 hours. Moreover, it was a battle in which no one could use their ultimate moves. Although it was stifling, Chen Hao still gained a lot. The first reason was that he had gained some understanding of the mysterious and magical power of reincarnation. The second reason was that Chen Hao was once again interested in the ultimate techniques of the martial arts world that he had almost forgotten. It had to be said that Helian Wuzi, this seemingly rude and unreasonable girl, was in fact a considerate little girl. She allowed Chen Hao to benefit greatly. Ultimate moves and trump cards are just bursts of power that surpass one's realm, not true strength. After all, once you use your trump card, you'll have to risk your life. It's fine if it's just one enemy, but what if it's a group? Chen Hao thought to himself. Just like the fused platinum sky-splitting slash, it was indeed very powerful. The power it could unleash in an instant was absolutely terrifying. Moreover, as Chen Hao's cultivation increased, the power of his attacks also increased. However, the number of times he could use it did not increase. Until now, Chen Hao's limit was only 10 times. This meant that one time would consume 1/10 of Chen Hao's energy. The platinum sky-splitting slash can only be used as a trump card as a last resort. If I rely too much on this move, I might suffer a great loss on that day. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye as Chen Hao and the other two cultivated. During this time, Elder Chuan and Elder Wu both came to look for Chen Hao once. After receiving Chen Hao's affirmation, the two of them were relieved. On the day of the duel, early in the morning, a mountain peak in the Jiaxing sect was packed with people. It could be said that almost all the disciples of the Jiaxing sect had gathered here. Even some elders were no exception. This mountain peak was specially used by the Jiaxing sect for disciples to duel. News of the duel between Tantai Lien and Helian Wuzi had already spread like wildfire in the Jiaxing sect. Whether it was the outer sect, inner sect, core disciples, or the elders and deacons of the Jiaxing sect, they were all paying close attention. Especially the young disciples. One had to know that no matter if it was Tantai Lien or Helian Wuzi, who caught up from behind, they were both first-rate beauties. More importantly, the two of them were progressing at a terrifying speed. It was hard not to cause a sensation. Wasn't Chen Hao a freak? However, Chen Hao's record had long been broken by the two girls. If not for the fact that Chen Hao had caused a sensation in the cultivation world and gained him great fame, His radiance would have been overshadowed by Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien. How lively! We came so early. I wonder if we'll make a wasted trip. Who knows? It's good to be able to see the duel between the two beauties, but it doesn't matter if we don't. After all, it's leaving the Jiaxing sect. We should be able to see it. The duel that day was made in front of countless disciples. They can't go back on their word. I just don't know how Senior Brother Chen Hao will handle it. I'm afraid Senior Brother Chen Hao will be in a difficult position. It won't be easy to handle. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian's strength is too terrifying. Senior Brother Chen Hao is only a half-step nascent soul. I'm afraid it will be difficult to stop them. That's where you're wrong. The news has spread in the cultivation world. Senior Brother Chen Hao is ranked 6th among the super geniuses of the Eastern Mainland, Western Mainland, and Southern Sea Islands. He's only a late-stage golden core cultivator, but he's also killed several top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands' 9th-rank sections. It's said that they're all half-step nascent soul and nascent soul cultivators. You have to know that these top geniuses of the 9th-rank sects are very powerful. They can easily kill the late-stage nascent soul super geniuses of the Eastern Mainland. When was this news? Why haven't I heard about it? It only spread in the last 2 days. I only heard about it when I submitted the mission to the Immortal Dao Union. Senior Brother Chen Hao is already known as the #1 inner disciple of the Eastern and Western Mainlands and the Southern Sea Islands. As long as he steps into the nascent soul realm, he'll be able to compete with Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen. He's even more famous than the three of them. Just hear whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as the crowd was discussing, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien flew over a few hundred feet apart. However, what made everyone feel strange was that Chen Hao didn't come. What was even stranger was that Chen Hao didn't appear until the end of the battle. The battle between Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien was very exciting. The power that they displayed was also very terrifying. However, everyone felt that it was a bit anticlimactic. Both of them didn't seem to want to fight with their lives on the line. From the beginning to the end, neither of them used any unexpected moves. Although Helian Wuzi was steadily suppressing Tantai Lien, neither of them seemed to be able to do anything to the other. After fighting for almost an hour, when Helian Wuzi suggested a draw, Tantai Lien, who was being suppressed, chose to agree. Just like that, it ended so casually and left so casually. Helian Wuzi naturally planned to do so because she had promised Chen Hao. She was wrong first. After all, she snatched someone else's palace. However, she didn't expect that Tantai Lien's combat power had increased so much compared to 2 months ago. Although this draw was the result that she wanted, it wasn't too unjust. Tantai Lien didn't know about Chen Hao and Helian Wuzi's secret plan. However, after the battle, she faintly felt that Helian Wuzi was holding back. Otherwise, she wouldn't have suggested a draw when she had the upper hand. However, even so, Tantai Lien didn't feel that she had taken advantage of Helian Wuzi. After all, under Chen Hao's restriction, she couldn't kill with all her might. Otherwise, she might not lose to Helian Wuzi even if she used her 7-star lost art to the extreme. The land of warmth, the tomb of heroes. Chen Hao had always remembered this sentence in his heart. Especially when he encountered relationship problems, he felt the same way. How could he not avoid it? It had to be said that this was Chen Hao's weakness. The result of their battle was already within Chen Hao's expectations. Therefore, he didn't look at it, because he didn't know how to get along with 2 women at the same time. Therefore, he ignored it and put it aside for the time being. He could only take 1 step at a time. Moreover, at this moment, the most important thing for him was to increase his strength and not waste his energy on this kind of love that could kill countless brain cells in a second. I'll give you the palace. I have my mountain peak. When Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien returned to Chen Hao's mountain peak, Helian Wuzi hesitated slightly but still said this. A draw was fine, but she didn't want to live in the same palace as Tantai Lien. Not to mention that there was only 1 cultivation room, even if there were 2. She didn't want to see someone she didn't like all the time. I don't need you to give me that. I also have my mountain peak, Tantai Lien said without hesitation. Helian Wuzi looked at Tantai Lien, who was not inferior to her, and said, "So you want to live in your mountain peak? That's good, I don't have to move." After saying that, she flew directly towards the palace. Tantai Lien didn't expect Helian Wuzi to do this. After being stunned for a moment, she immediately followed after her. "Why are you following me? If you don't leave, why should I leave? I let you, you don't want it. I want it but you follow me. What do you mean?" Helian Wuzi said unhappily. "My meaning is clear. I don't care if you let me. I'll only leave if you leave. If you stay, why can't I stay? So boring. Then you stay." After saying that, Helian Wuzi ignored Tantai Lien. After entering the palace, she quickly kept her things and was about to leave. Wait. But at this moment, Tantai Lien called out. "What? You stay. I'll take it back after a year." After saying that, Tantai Lien left directly. However, she didn't leave the mountain peak. Instead, she went to another palace. Helian Wuzi was speechless. Was there something wrong with this woman? 1 year later, 10 years later, don't even think about taking it away. In fact, it wasn't that Tantai Lien was crazy. She only did this when she was sure that Helian Wuzi wasn't playing with her. In fact, both of them knew that this wasn't a fight for the palace at all. Moreover, strictly speaking, Tantai Lien's strength was not as good as Helian Wuzi's. If Helian Wuzi really moved away, it would make her seem ungentlemanly. It had to be said that women were simply unpredictable creatures. Especially when women were fighting with other women, all kinds of trivial things could come out. Chen Hao, who was in seclusion, would never have thought of this result. In the blink of an eye, 4 months passed quickly. Chen Hao finally digested all his gains from the city in the sky. He already vaguely felt that his half-step nascent soul realm had reached its limit. The first chapter. I'm too slow in compiling chapters. I'm scratching my head. I've only written 1 chapter since the morning. The second chapter is at night. Wushan will continue to work hard. When the plot goes well, I'll definitely work hard. Don't worry. I'm also working hard now. It's just that I can't get the output. I'm conflicted. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Chapter 302. Phew! Chen Hao exhaled slowly and slowly opened his eyes. His black eyes were clear and deep, but there was no light. This situation was a bit strange. Under normal circumstances, when a swordsman finished cultivating and opened his eyes, he would emit his peak state of sword essence from his eyes. In any case, Chen Hao, who had improved again, should not look so ordinary. He could not even sense any sword essence at all. After 4 months of closed-door cultivation, I didn't expect that the sword principle realm, which is the most difficult to improve, would be improved to the peak of the 3rd level of the sword principle. Moreover, it faintly contains the aura of the secular sword principle. Chen Hao thought to himself, I've reached my current limit. Naturally, Chen Hao clearly felt that whether it was his physical body, genuine essence, state of mind, essence, qi, and spirit, they had all reached the limit of Chen Hao's current realm. And the trace of the secular sword principle attribute that he had comprehended allowed his incomparably fierce sword essence to be in a wonderful state of restraint. In addition to his powerful soul power, Chen Hao was sure that as long as he wanted, no one would be able to sense that he was a swordsman. It's time. Chen Hao thought for a moment and said in a deep voice with a burning light in his eyes. After saying that, he disappeared from the cultivation room in a flash. He did not conceal his aura. In the sect, there was no need to be so cautious. Hey, where are they? For 4 months, Chen Hao focused on cultivation wholeheartedly. He did not pay attention to the situation of Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien at all. And at this moment, relying on his rock-solid state of mind, he cut the Gordian knot and did indeed achieve a state of mind that was free of distractions. He originally thought that the 2 should be in the palace, but he did not expect that there was no aura of the 2 in the entire mountain peak, and the others were not there either. Just as Chen Hao was thinking, a familiar and extremely powerful aura suddenly enveloped Chen Hao. You finished your closed-door cultivation? You've improved a lot. Have you reached the perfection? Yuan Tairan's voice rang out in Qin Hao's ears from a few hundred kilometers away on star-seizing peak. His voice carried a sliver of anticipation. It should be complete. Sovereign, I want to... Qin Hao said directly. He didn't have the ability to transmit his voice across hundreds of miles, but he knew that Yuan Tairan could hear him. Come to star-picking peak quickly, Yuan Tairan said impatiently after receiving Chen Hao's affirmative reply. A few days after Chen Hao went into seclusion, he had already rushed back to the sect. As the leader of a sect, he was in charge of all the affairs of the entire sect. If there were no special circumstances, he would not leave. The reason he left was because of the upcoming inter-sect competition. It could be said that the inter-sect competition, which was held once every 10 years, was the biggest event in the Eastern continent. It was related to a sect's grade, ranking, luck, and most importantly, the sect's interests. None of the sects would look down on them. The competition was intense, far from what the 100 Empire rankings and Dragon Transformation rankings could compare to. After a while, Chen Hao arrived at Star-Picking Peak. Under the guidance of a deacon, he stepped into Star-Picking Hall. Disciple Chen Hao greets all the Grand Supreme Elders. Greetings, Sovereign. Greetings, Grand Supreme Elders. The moment Chen Hao entered the hall, he was locked on by many auras. However, he wasn't surprised. Before he stepped in, his powerful soul perception had already detected many powerful auras in the hall. There were a total of 37 of them. Among them, Six Paths was the most terrifying. He was even stronger than the faction leader. He must be the legendary Supreme Elder. Numerous gazes and probing auras gathered on Chen Hao's body. How great was the pressure generated? Yuan Tairan and a Grand Supreme Elder were still trying to probe him. However, Chen Hao, who had a powerful soul, was as calm as a mountain. Not only was he not affected by the pressure, but he also cupped his fists respectfully. This changed the way they looked at Chen Hao. There was a hint of admiration and shock in their eyes. This was especially true for Yuan Tairan and the Grand Supreme Elder. Good. No wonder you were able to obtain the 6th place in the potential test among so many peerless geniuses. Moreover, you killed several peerless geniuses of the Southern Sea Archipelago. Very good. Yuan Tairan released a beam of energy and helped Chen Hao, who was bowing down, stand up. When he received the news, he couldn't believe it. They were only a 3rd-grade sect. Although they knew that the Mirage Desert was a once-in-a-century opportunity to train, they didn't dare to let any of their disciples participate. It was no different from asking for humiliation. However, at this moment, when he saw Chen Hao in person, he completely believed that Chen Hao had exceeded his expectations. I was just lucky. Sect Master, why did you call me here? Chen Hao had already guessed something when he saw such a big lineup, but he still pretended to be ignorant. It's a matter of honor for our entire sect. I didn't expect you to be able to make it in time. Are you sure you can trigger the heavenly punishment? It shouldn't be a problem, Chen Hao said. That's good. Yuan Tairan wasn't worried at all that Chen Hao would fail to trigger the heavenly punishment. Such a peerless genius, especially one who had walked step by step from the mortal world to where he was now, would definitely have a stronger temperament than those super geniuses blessed by the heavens. He wouldn't allow anything to go wrong. He directly said, you should know about the inter-sect competition that is held every 10 years, right? Seeing Chen Hao nod, Yuan Tairan continued, this inter-sect competition is the biggest event in the Eastern continent's cultivation world. It's related to the sect's ranking, fortune, and fundamental interests. The conditions for participation are to be above the nascent soul stage and below the age of 40. Although you're half a step away from the nascent soul stage, as long as you trigger the heavenly punishment, you'll qualify for the competition. This time, with you, Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lien, and several new core disciples, our star-picking sect will be able to contend with a 5th-rank sect in terms of numbers. As for your combat strength, Helian Wuzi said she's no match for you. Is that true? Chen Hao hadn't expected Helian Wuzi to be brought up. He hesitated for a moment, then said, it should be about the same. Her battle with me wasn't a life-and-death battle, so I can't be too sure. No need to be humble. Even if you're on par with her, That's only because you're half a step away from the nascent soul stage. Once you step into the nascent soul stage, your strength will increase by 2 times, or even more. Yuan Tairan then gave Chen Hao a simple explanation of the intersect competition, as well as the star-picking sect's disciples who were qualified to participate. Including Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian, there were a total of 31 disciples in the star-picking sect who were qualified. As for the other 28 people, Chen Hao only knew his senior sister Yi Feishue, whom he had befriended previously. The strongest one was Long Yukong, who was ranked first among the core disciples. He was also the only one who had stepped into the half-step incarnation realm. Yi Feishue and the other 3 had stepped into the peak of the advanced nascent soul stage. It had to be said that the star-picking sect had developed at an unprecedented speed in the past 2 years. Especially after the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven was completely opened, it was even more shocking. In a few more years, the number of young experts in the star-picking sect would definitely increase exponentially. Moreover, what surprised Chen Hao was that although the competition was cruel and fierce, there was basically no threat of death. Thinking about it, this was expected. After all, the disciples who were qualified to participate were all geniuses that their respective sects had spent countless efforts to nurture. They were all the future pillars of the sect. Who would be willing to let them fall in the competition? Moreover, the competition format was completely different from an ordinary competition. This made Chen Hao look forward to it even more. There are only 2 months left. The others are already in seclusion in the cultivation room specially created by the Grand Elder. When can you trigger the divine punishment? Yuan Tairan asked Chen Hao after a brief introduction. Now, Chen Hao said, you don't need to prepare? The divine punishment is a nightmare for many cultivators. Although you don't have a big problem, you can't let your guard down. Only you know whether you can trigger the divine punishment. Once you trigger it, no one can help you. You can only bear it yourself. Moreover, with your battle strength, the divine punishment you trigger will definitely be much stronger than ordinary cultivators. That's right. Chen Hao, are you sure there's no problem with your state of mind? Elder Chuan couldn't help but ask. He had seen with his own eyes how Chen Hao had fallen into a demonic trap after learning about Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian. Therefore, he didn't expect Chen Hao to step into the nascent soul stage before the intersect competition. However, in 4 months, Chen Hao's aura was indeed as heavy as a mountain. He couldn't sense any flaws. However, for the sake of caution, he still reminded him. It shouldn't be, you have to be sure. The divine punishment is no small matter. If your state of mind isn't in a perfect state, it's very likely that an accident will happen. Although your aura is already very heavy and stable, your speed of advancement is still too fast. Moreover, forget it, think about it carefully. Elder Chuan wanted to mention Chen Hao's emotional problems, but he stopped himself in time. He knew that it was impossible for anyone to be completely free of their inner demons. If Chen Hao had already suppressed his inner demons, there would be side effects if he mentioned it. There's no need to think about it. I came out of seclusion to trigger the divine punishment. I can feel that I've reached my limits in all aspects. Don't worry, nothing will happen, Chen Hao said with a determined gaze. After he finished speaking, he cupped his fists and said to the sect leader and everyone else, I'll take my leave. Kid, don't tell me you're going back to your mountain to trigger the divine punishment? Elder Chuan hurriedly said. Tantai Lian triggered the divine punishment the last time and almost destroyed the entire mountain. Fortunately, we discovered it in time. Then where should I trigger it? I'll take you there, Elder Chuan said. Let's all go and take a look. It's rare for our Zhaixing sect to have the divine punishment descend several times in a year. Grand Supreme Elders, I'll have to trouble you to specially create a cultivation room for him. Yuan Tairan said respectfully to the 6 Grand Elders who didn't say a word. They only narrowed their eyes and seemed to be looking at Chen Hao with gratification. Old Man also wants to know how strong this kid's divine punishment is. Let's go take a look first. As long as this kid satisfies the old man can let him go to the old man's grotto heaven and let him. The leader of the 6 Grand Elders suddenly said with a smile. It can't be. Everyone, including Yuan Tairan, widened their eyes when they heard the Grand Elder's words. Second update. Today is the second update. Everyone don't wait. When the time comes, Dark Mountain will definitely erupt. If it can't erupt, there's nothing we can do. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 303. All disciples, listen up. Our disciple Chen Hao is about to trigger divine punishment on Waterfall Peak. Please make way. Inner and outer disciples may come and watch, but do not make any noise or come within 5 kilometers. As Elder Technique Imparting took the lead and led Chen Hao to the peak where the outer waterfall of the star-picking sect was located, his majestic voice spread far and wide like the evening drum and morning bell. It resounded in the space hundreds of kilometers around the star-picking sect, causing a huge commotion in the entire star-picking sect in an instant. Even in the sect, divine punishment only appeared a few times a year. Although divine punishment was directed at the person who triggered it, the mysterious aura it contained was a rare opportunity for disciples who had not experienced divine punishment to comprehend it. It was very beneficial for improving their state of mind. Last time, Tantai Lien, who did not know much about the cultivation world, had foolishly triggered divine punishment directly. Not only had she almost destroyed Chen Hao's peak, but she had also wasted an opportunity for many disciples to comprehend and learn. This time, she could not waste it. The outer heavenly waterfall is a cultivation paradise for our star-picking sect. It contains extremely profound laws. What's even more amazing is that not only can it withstand the bombardment of heavenly tribulation energy, it can also absorb a certain amount of energy from the heavenly tribulation to grow. Hundreds of years ago, the outer waterfall was only 9,000 feet high. Now that it has undergone the baptism of divine punishment by our disciples, it has grown to 10,000 feet. When Elder Technique Imparting brought Chen Hao to the outer waterfall, he gazed at the majestic waterfall and said, "It's a pity that it hasn't grown in the past 100 years. What's the reason?" Hearing Elder Technique Imparting's words, Chen Hao asked curiously. The reason is very simple. At this moment, the old man who was the head of the great elders smiled and said, "Everything in the world has spirituality, and things that can grow naturally have a trace of intelligence. They constantly absorb the energy of the world to maintain their own operations. In fact, the outer waterfall is the same as us cultivators. It has grown to its limit. Only by breaking through the bottleneck can it continue to grow. 3,000 feet is its barrier. If it is unable to break through, then with the passage of time, it will gradually disappear in the long river of history." Hearing the Supreme Elder's words, Chen Hao pondered for a moment. He had once tested the outer sky waterfall here. Although it was far from being comparable to the 90,000 feet Spirit Spring waterfall in the small cultivation cave he had encountered in the Sky City, it had mysteries that the Spirit Spring waterfall didn't have. It could change its trajectory in an instant, and it also had a powerful energy backlash. Although Chen Hao's cultivation was still very low at that time, when he thought of the mysteries it contained, and the Supreme Elder's words at this moment, Chen Hao's interest was once again aroused. Moreover, regardless of whether the outer sky waterfall could become stronger or not, for Chen Hao, it was absolutely a holy land for practicing the mental cultivation method of carving. "All right, little guy, you can start now," the great elder said. Phew! Chen Hao sat cross-legged on the peak next to the source of the outer sky waterfall. He breathed a long sigh of relief and slowly closed his eyes. Although Chen Hao had absolute confidence in passing through the legendary divine punishment, he would not let his guard down. This was because, under the advice of the mysterious existence, he wanted to try a dangerous but most beneficial method. Several figures appeared as fast as lightning within a radius of 10 miles around the waterfall peak. Countless outer disciples, inner disciples, and deacons were staring at Chen Hao, who was sitting on the peak from afar. One of the figures was Dong Fong Ting. At this moment, her aura was obviously much stronger than half a year ago. She had risen to the half-step nascent soul stage. In the star-picking sect, she was not outstanding. Her talent could only be considered average, or even below average. She could not be compared to the monstrous geniuses like Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian. Otherwise, at her age, she would have stepped into the nascent soul stage long ago. In half a year's time, she was able to advance so quickly because Chen Hao had specially given her a large number of elixirs and primordial crystal stones. At this moment, she stared blankly at Chen Hao's figure. There was no envy or jealousy in her eyes, only relief and happiness. Although she was a senior sister in name, Chen Hao, Dongfang Jun, and the rest were the closest juniors in her eyes. How could she not be happy to see them surpass her one by one? In particular, Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun had stepped into the Seven Stars Grotto Heaven for 6 months but had not come out. What did this mean? It meant that they were likely to be like Tantai Lian, breaking through level by level to the higher levels of the Seven Stars Grotto Heaven. When they came out, they would not be much worse than her, and no one was more certain than Dongfang Ting that this was brought about by Chen Hao. That once tender and immature youth had already grown into someone she could look up to, someone she could even consider as her backer. Hiss. After a short 10 minutes, Chen Hao suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, the aura around his body blossomed without restraint, and in an instant, the full, round and pure essence, energy, and spirit condensed into a seemingly solid smoke signal that shot straight into the sky. His true essence circulated at the maximum speed, his mind's perception was pushed to the limit, his sword intent was raised to the limit, and all the heavenly Tao laws he had comprehended were pushed to the limit. His physical strength was stretched to the limit. There was no doubt that at this moment, Chen Hao had pushed himself to the limit in every aspect. Only when he was at the limit could he trigger the heavenly punishment. What a vigorous true essence! What a condensed essence, energy, and spirit! Peak of the fourth heaven of the sword Tao. Peak of the initial success of the wind attribute and the initial success of the space attribute. In just an instant, the moment Chen Hao released his aura without restraint, the 6 Grand Elders, Yuan Tairan, and the inner court elders all widened their eyes in shock. They looked at each other in shock. No matter who it was, they all saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. Good. Old Man had long guessed that this little fellow was not so simple. The leader of the Grand Elders could not help but say with a touch of surprise, but I did not expect that he would still exceed Old Man's expectations. This is our star-picking sect. No, even in the entire Eastern continent, this is a genius that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. Listen up, as long as there are no accidents, this little fellow's future achievements will definitely exceed all of our imaginations. Remember, do not restrict him in any way. If necessary, even if you use the entire sect's strength to nurture him, do not hesitate. Tairan, when this little fellow succeeds in his tribulation, you will personally ask him. No matter what he wishes for, you must help him achieve it. Let him devote himself to cultivation without any distractions. Yes. Yuan Tairan replied without any hesitation. As the leader of a sect, he had never been so shocked before. The extreme aura that Chen Hao displayed at this moment had thoroughly shocked everyone. This was even more shocking than when Yuan Tairan heard that Chen Hao had killed the top genius of the South Sea Islands' 9th-rank sect. He simply could not imagine how Chen Hao, who had only stepped into the cultivation world for 2 years, had cultivated to such a level. This had nothing to do with the realm. Although Helian Wuzi's realm had shocked him, it was far from being comparable to Chen Hao's. After Chen Hao released his aura, the energy of heaven and earth within a radius of hundreds of miles began to fluctuate violently and surged to the top of the waterfall peak. This was the precursor of the condensation of heaven's punishment. It was only a premonition, but it was enough to let the top experts of the star-seizing house know that Chen Hao's heavenly punishment was the most powerful of all the heavenly punishment they had ever seen from a half-step nascent soul disciple. It looks like it's not much worse than the heaven's punishment triggered by a half-step incarnation realm cultivator. The 6 supreme elders, Yuan Tairan, and the elder of imparting techniques could not help but think to themselves. Under normal circumstances, the range of the heaven's punishment triggered by a half-step nascent soul disciple would not exceed 200 miles. However, Chen Hao had just started and the range of the heaven's punishment had already advanced to 500 miles and was still increasing. However, no one was too surprised. After all, the aura that Chen Hao had just displayed and his combat strength could cause such a disturbance. To be able to reach 800 miles was comparable to the heaven's punishment triggered by a half-step incarnation realm super genius. As the energy of heaven and earth gathered, the tribulation cloud emitting a terrifying pressure condensed in the void above Chen Hao's head. It covered the sky and the sun, causing the wind and clouds to change color. Streaks of azure lightning flashed within it, causing the pressure it emitted to become more and more terrifying. There was no need for instructions at all. Under the huge pressure, the disciples of the Jiaxing sect kept retreating further and further away. Some of the disciples who had never seen others trigger the heaven's punishment were shocked, but only shocked. However, some of the disciples who had seen their fellow disciples trigger the heaven's punishment were extremely shocked. No one thought that the heaven's punishment triggered by the half-step nascent soul Chen Hao would be so powerful at the beginning. Time continued and the tribulation cloud was still rapidly increasing. 500 miles, 600 miles, 700 miles, 800 miles. When the range of the heaven's punishment reached 800 miles, Yuan Tairan, the 6 supreme elders, and other powerful figures all widened their eyes. At this time, it was comparable to the heaven's punishment of the incarnation realm, and it was the heaven's punishment of a super genius. However, what made them gasp was that the heaven's punishment did not seem to be stopping. It continued to spread and spread. When it reached 900 miles, it finally stopped. The people who were gasping finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, they looked at Chen Hao with deep worry in their eyes. Even the supreme elder, who was the leader, frowned at this moment. It was obvious that the power of the heaven's punishment had far exceeded their expectations. Supreme elder Bai, can Chen Hao withstand it? Yuan Tairan looked at the leader of the supreme elders and asked worriedly. He was extremely regretful. Originally, they were not worried about Chen Hao's heaven's punishment at all. After all, Chen Hao's strength was there for all to see. No matter how strong the heaven's punishment was, how strong could it be? If he did not use any protection and relied on himself to withstand the heaven's punishment, he would benefit more. But now, Part 1, I want to discuss something with everyone and ask for their opinions. Those who have read Wushan's previous 2 books should understand that the style of this book is completely different. But now, Wushan realized that the most suitable characters for Wushan to write were still the main characters who were wretched, shameless, and hooligan. Wushan felt stifled when he had to write about real and ordinary emotions. So, Wushan wanted to subtly change the main characters' personalities. Would everyone agree? This is because of the protagonist's personality. Wushan can't let go, and the plot is greatly limited. I really don't know what's going on. Logically speaking, Wushan is very pure, should be the most suitable for a pure protagonist. But I can't find that kind of feeling to my heart's content. If the protagonist's personality is slightly changed to be more vulgar and free, it might be more suitable for Wushan. Does everyone agree? Brothers and sisters, please leave comments. To be continued. If you like this book, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 304. The old man can't be sure. His divine punishment is beyond the half-step to incarnation realm. Even the old man has never heard of it. We were careless. If we had known, we would have prepared a set of armor for him. Now we can only depend on him. The supreme elder said with a frown. His excited expression had turned into deep worry. It would be a pity if such a peerless genius died under the divine punishment. Once the divine punishment was triggered, no one could help or interrupt it. If they interrupted it forcefully, the consequences would be even more severe. The only thing they could do was to resign themselves to fate. Whether they could successfully pass the divine punishment depended on Chen Hao himself. As the energy of heaven and earth within 1,000 miles gathered crazily, dark clouds rolled and covered the sky. It was as if the heavenly dog had swallowed the sun, causing the entire Jiaxing sect to fall into darkness. The terrifying pressure of the divine punishment had already forced the weaker disciples to retreat dozens of miles away from the waterfall peak. Even so, many people were still retreating. Only Chen Hao, who was standing on the peak, was surrounded by dazzling true core strength. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. At this moment, Chen Hao raised his head and stared at the tribulation clouds in the sky. His extraordinarily handsome and angular face was filled with a firm expression, and his black eyes were like dazzling stars and sharp sword lights. His clothes and long hair fluttered with the wind. Naturally, he was exuding a domineering arrogance. "Are you very strong? No matter how strong you are, Chen Hao will take it." Sensing the terrifying aura of the tribulation clouds, Chen Hao said in his heart. When Chen Hao triggered the heavenly punishment, treasure-hunting sword Spirit and Itoda had already hidden themselves in the depths of Chen Hao's soul. Moreover, a powerful seal had been placed on them by a mysterious existence. Because the divine punishment represented the test of heaven's power. Undergoing the baptism of the divine punishment was the refinement and purification of the soul and body. Therefore, Ito-ta, the treasure hunter sword spirit, and the mysterious existence in Chen Hao's soul were considered impurities in Chen Hao's soul to the divine punishment. The 5 divine beasts in the 5 elements sword were fine. Chi. Within the terrifying tribulation clouds, the arcs of lightning became more and more violent. Clearly, it was time for the heavenly punishment to descend. But, what is this brat doing? Why haven't you taken out your sword yet? Could it be that he still wants to resist? Isn't that just courting death? Yuan Tairen, Grand Elder, and the others were originally worried about whether Chen Hao could survive such a terrifying heavenly punishment. However, what was even more unexpected was that just as the heavenly punishment was about to descend, Chen Hao's figure actually stood as straight as a sword, not moving at all. It was clear that he wanted to resist the heavenly punishment. Originally, it was not strange for a man to resist the heavenly punishment. After all, a man's body was completely tempered, unlike a woman whose body parts could not be tempered. However, not many people dared to do so. After all, the stronger one was, the stronger Tian Fa would be. No one dared to play around with their own life, and no one could be 100% sure that they would succeed. Therefore, under normal circumstances, when the heavenly punishment descended, one would use one's strongest attack and defense to reduce the damage that the heavenly punishment would inflict on one's body. However, although Chen Hao's aura had soared to the limit, his current expression clearly showed that he had no intention of attacking. The heavenly punishment was already so terrifying, yet Chen Hao still wanted to resist it. How could they not be shocked? However, no matter how shocked they were, it was useless, Kacha. The sky was suddenly torn apart, and the ink-black tribulation clouds flashed with arcs of lightning. At this moment, a terrifying lightning serpent, dozens of feet thick, blasted towards Chen Hao with an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao raised his head to the sky and roared. His palms faced upwards as he welcomed the lightning beam. There was not a single trace of energy being emitted. There was only his mind, all his true essence, all his essence, all the mysteries of the laws, all of them erupting within Chen Hao's body. Every cell in his body was stimulated to the limit, and his blood began to burn. Rumble! The thick lightning pillar illuminated the entire space, and the moment it touched Chen Hao's body, an earth-shattering boom erupted. All the disciples who had seen others trigger the heavenly punishment could not help but cry out in shock. Dongfang Ting was filled with fear, her face pale as she closed her eyes, not daring to look again. Even the sect master, Grand Elder, and the others had their mouths wide open, holding their breaths. No one was not nervous. Life and death was a matter of an instant, and no matter what the result was, they had to face it. He withstood it. Chen Hao actually withstood it. In the minds of many experienced disciples, Chen Hao would very likely be reduced to ashes the moment he resisted the heavenly punishment. However, they saw the 1,000-foot waterfall suddenly reverse and disappear into thin air. They saw Chen Hao raise his hands to the sky, as if he wanted to raise the heavens, and stand proudly within the dazzling lightning pillar. At this moment, everyone heaved a sigh of relief, but they immediately tensed up again. Because withstanding the heavenly punishment did not mean that he had successfully passed the heavenly punishment, because the heavenly punishment was still ongoing, and the real test was yet to come. The reason why they heaved a sigh of relief was because now that Chen Hao could withstand it, he could clearly test his limits and challenge them. When he could no longer bear it, he would naturally slash the heavenly punishment with his sword. If he could destroy the heavenly punishment, it would be a success, but if he could not, it would still be a failure. Within the heavenly punishment light pillar, Chen Hao's soul and physical body were enduring unimaginable pain, but Chen Hao gritted his teeth and persevered, his heart like a boulder, unmoved. What was pain? No matter how great the pain was, he could endure it. As long as it could increase his strength, he was willing to endure it every day. With the undying bloodline in his physical body, as long as he was not instantly reduced to ashes, he dared to try no matter how severe the injuries were. His soul, he, who had fused the souls of 2 lifetimes, had experienced the crushing pain of his soul before anyone else had experienced any soul pain. He had almost been reduced to dust. How strong was a mutated fusion soul? He himself did not know. At least, at this moment, he could clearly sense that he had not reached his limit. As for the powerful pressure of the heavenly punishment, it had the least impact on Chen Hao. This was due to the palace in the Sky City. However, what Chen Hao did not expect was that after persevering for a few seconds in the terrifying heavenly punishment, his rock-solid state of mind suddenly had a huge fluctuation. At the same time, images appeared in Chen Hao's mind: Helian Wuzi, Xiaoyu, Tantai Lian, Chen Shui, and it was only for a moment. Before Chen Hao could react, he fell into confusion and illusion. When a blood arrow spurted out from Chen Hao's mouth, countless people could not help but cry out in alarm. Immediately, Chen Hao's eyes, nose, ears, and even every pore, in the instant Chen Hao's mind was lost, blood hissed out. Heart demon! Without a doubt, the emotional problems that Chen Hao thought he had completely suppressed in the depths of his heart were dug out by the mysterious heavenly punishment, directly causing him to fall into an illusion. In this situation, if Chen Hao did not use brute force, but used a defensive attack to break through the heavenly punishment, it could be completely avoided. But to withstand it like this, it required a very perfect state of mind, a flawless state of mind. Without the control of one's mind, one's body and soul were instantly lost. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been directly destroyed. Fortunately, Chen Hao's body and soul were far superior to ordinary people. Even without the control of his mind, he only bled from the 7 orifices. His body was still as straight as a sword. Moreover, under the terrifying heavenly punishment, Chen Hao's true origin and elemental mysteries, after losing the control of his mind, all stagnated. But the sword intent contained in his body became even fiercer at this moment, and strangely changed according to the changes in Chen Hao's state of mind in the illusion, constantly attacking the barrier of Chen Hao's swordsmanship realm. In just a few seconds, there were faint signs of a breakthrough. However, under the cover of the terrifying aura of heavenly punishment, even the Supreme Elder and the others could not sense any aura of Chen Hao. The only thing they could see was that Chen Hao was bleeding from the 7 orifices, but Chen Hao's still straight figure shocked everyone. This strange situation was completely beyond their scope of understanding. After 5 minutes, the light beam of heavenly punishment suddenly disappeared. Voila! At this moment, it was as if the 1,000-foot waterfall and the bright sunlight had disappeared into thin air, pouring down. Success! Success! He actually succeeded. This. Yuan Tairan, the Supreme Elder, and the others quickly flew toward Chen Hao. At this moment, with the disappearance of heavenly punishment, Chen Hao's illusion also disappeared, and he regained consciousness. What made him feel a little scared was that at this moment, whether it was his physical body, soul, or mind, they were all severely injured and extremely weak. This was definitely a life-and-death situation that Chen Hao had never experienced before. However, at this moment, he was still standing proudly, straight as a sword. Moreover, a dense aura slowly rose from his body, and like a warm current, it automatically grew in every cell of his body. His injuries were quickly recovering, and the golden core in his dantian had disappeared. In its place was a nascent soul, emitting a dreamy glow. A small nascent soul, a naked nascent soul. Although small, it was like a miniature version of Chen Hao. It had all the parts and functions, and it was much more beautiful than Chen Hao, because it was dazzling with 7 colors. Nascent Soul Realm. The legendary 7-colored nascent soul. Chen Hao could clearly feel that his physical body was undergoing a shocking change. Although his soul was already very strong, Chen Hao's perception quickly spread out under the cover of this dense aura. 500 miles, 800 miles, 1,500 miles, 1,500 miles, haha. Little guy, congratulations. Chen Hao, good job. Congratulations, congratulations. The sect master, supreme elder, and inner sect elders were the first to arrive, and they all praised and congratulated Chen Hao with joy. Immediately, the outer sect elders and some disciples with higher cultivation flew over, including Dong Fong Ting. Second update. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. I hope that my brothers and sisters will thank the friends who posted the reviews. When Dark Mountain said to change his personality, he did not mean to completely change it into a wretched one. That would definitely not be possible. I just want to change it slightly, and change it naturally. I will not let everyone feel that it is too out of place. My innate arrogance will not change. Thank you again, and I hope that everyone will give me more suggestions and post more reviews. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Chapter 305. Little guy, don't take any elixirs. The injuries of the heavenly punishment will heal on their own. Once you step into the nascent soul stage, your body, soul, and mind will all be greatly improved. Later, old man will send you into my grotto heaven so that you can comprehend and stabilize your cultivation. Thank you very much, Grand Elder. Chen Hao said. Let's go to the star-picking peak first. Let's go. Yuan Tairan waved his hand and sent out a beam of energy that wrapped around Chen Hao. Creak, creak. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from the waterfall peak, causing everyone to turn around. It's growing so fast. When the heavenly waterfall suddenly grew at an astonishing speed, the entire mountain trembled and emitted a mysterious and strange aura. This feeling was similar to a cultivator's cultivation level. Everyone stared in shock at the rapidly growing waterfall peak. Not only was the mountain taller, it was also thicker. The growth of the mountain directly caused the height and width of the waterfall to increase rapidly. In just a few minutes, the entire mountain had grown from 1,000 feet to 1,300 feet. Only then did it slow down and gradually stop. Yuan Tairan and the others were shocked and also very puzzled. Although Chen Hao's heavenly punishment was unbelievably powerful and completely beyond their imagination, that was only for a half-step nascent soul stage heavenly punishment. This was especially true for the Grand Elders. When they broke through from the nascent soul stage to the creation stage, the heavenly punishment they triggered was far stronger than Chen Hao's. But even then, they were unable to make the heavenly waterfall grow. What they did not know was that Chen Hao was even more shocked. The moment the heavenly waterfall began to grow, a strange and weak aura faintly appeared in Chen Hao's heart, as if connecting Chen Hao with the heavenly waterfall. This feeling was very clear, just like the telepathy he had established with Xia Yuyu. It was very mysterious. What was going on? Chen Hao was very puzzled. Could it be that because of his heavenly punishment, he had established some kind of connection with the heavenly waterfall? Even when Yuan Tairan and the others brought Chen Hao back to the star-picking peak several hundred kilometers away, Chen Hao could clearly sense it. Moreover, he didn't need to use any of his senses. It was only when the utmost exalted elder sent him into his paradise that he was cut off. Phew. So this is the grotto heaven created by a creation realm expert? Chen Hao's eyes carried a trace of shock as he sized up the surrounding space, and he exclaimed in his heart. Chen Hao seemed to be in a transparent barrier of light. All he could see was the endless night sky and terrifying spatial storms. The entire transparent barrier was covered with dense inscriptions that slowly flowed, as if it was constantly in the spatial storms, refining extremely pure energy of the world, causing the spiritual chi of the world to be extremely dense. Furthermore, there was still a trace of the aura of the great elder's comprehension of the laws of the world. This should be the space outside of the restrictions of the laws of the world of cultivation? Who knows how much true yuan and spiritual treasures were used to create this grotto heaven? I only have 1 month, I can't waste it. When the utmost exalted elder said that he was going to enter his grotto heaven to cultivate, Chen Hao saw the shock and envy on the faces of Yuan Tairan and the others. Chen Hao did not want to waste such a rare opportunity. After a brief moment of surprise, he sat cross-legged and slowly closed his eyes, immersing himself in cultivation. Chen Hao, who had just stepped into the nascent soul realm, first had to stabilize his cultivation and refine his true yuan. He had to let his weak rainbow nascent soul reach a full state. The utmost exalted elder's grotto heaven was filled with extremely pure energy of the world. There was no need to refine it to absorb it. However, after a short 4 hours, Chen Hao opened his eyes and frowned slightly. He murmured, "I didn't expect to reach the limit of the longevity art so quickly. I only have 1 month, what should I do?" Chen Hao had long planned to cultivate other inner force techniques after stepping into the nascent soul realm. After all, when he was in the golden core realm, he already felt that the longevity art could no longer satisfy him. However, he did not expect it to come so quickly. His nascent soul had not reached a full state, but the energy it contained had already reached the limit of what the longevity art could activate. After pondering for a moment, Chen Hao was a little conflicted. In the past 2 years, his progress could be described as rapid. He had also obtained many secret manuals and unique skills. However, among the unique skills of internal strength, the strongest one was the 7 Stars Sutra. However, the 7 Stars Sutra was at best a top earth-level technique. Although he had not started to cultivate it, Chen Hao vaguely knew that even if he cultivated the 7 Stars Sutra to the extreme, it would not be able to bear his legendary rainbow nascent soul. Through Ito Tai, Chen Hao understood that the rainbow nascent soul was an extremely rare nascent soul in the cultivation world. There might not be one among hundreds of millions of genius disciples. It was 5 times stronger than an ordinary nascent soul. Once Chen Hao refined his nascent soul to the peak of the early stage, his vital essence would be 5 times stronger than an ordinary peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm. This was under the premise that Chen Hao's abnormal physical body was ignored. This also meant that Chen Hao had to work 5 times or even 10 times harder than an ordinary person to reach the same level of vital essence. Of course, the strength was not the same, but the level was the same. If I had known before coming in, I would have taught the sect master a high-level inner force technique. I think he would definitely not refuse. Chen Hao thought to himself. In the sect, disciples in the nascent soul realm would not be taught heaven-level techniques under normal circumstances. Firstly, heaven-level techniques were precious. Secondly, even those in the nascent soul realm could not really comprehend heaven-level techniques. You don't have to change the technique now. After all, the time is too short. No matter how talented you are, if you change the technique, you won't be able to improve your strength in a month. It will even be difficult to recover to your original level. You can try the primary principle of Tao. Just as Chen Hao was thinking about whether to cultivate the 7 Stars Sutra, the mysterious existence in his mind suddenly said, "Primary principle of Tao? That's an absolute technique?" Chen Hao asked, a little surprised. It's not an absolute technique. However, although the primary principle of Tao is only a general introduction to the 3,000 great Taos, it also contains the essence of Taoism. The 3,000 great Taos are also derived from the essence of Taoism. If you can comprehend a little of the primary principle of Tao, you will definitely be able to transform your low-level absolute technique. Even if it's just the tip of the iceberg, you will benefit greatly. I'm only suggesting. The decision is yours, the mysterious existence said. When Chen Hao had embarked on a cultivation path that was completely out of his control, he had already decided to let Chen Hao develop on his own and would not interfere with his cultivation. If not for the fact that Chen Hao was troubled by this problem, he would definitely not have mentioned it. That's the only way. The mysterious existence's words made Chen Hao understand that there was indeed a great risk in changing the absolute technique now. After all, he would only be in the grotto heaven for a month. A month later, all the disciples in the Zhaixing sect who were qualified to participate in the intersect competition would set off. Man follows earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao. Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. Chen Hao collected his thoughts and recited the primary principle of Tao over and over again in his mind. Even if Chen Hao was extremely intelligent and had superb comprehension, he would not be able to comprehend any of the profound and abstruse words in a short time. However, Chen Hao's temperament was extremely tenacious, arrogant, and unyielding. The more he could not understand something, the more he wanted to understand it. Once he got into it, he would not stop. Obviously, this character was influenced by his previous life. Otherwise, he would not have become a powerful person who stood at the peak of countless fields. Time passed day by day. On the 7th day, Chen Hao still had not comprehended anything. However, he seemed to have sunk into a state of madness. The recitation in his mind became louder and louder. He did not care about the energy circulating around his body at all. He also forgot that his goal was to stabilize his realm as soon as possible and refine his nascent soul to a full state. Hiss hiss hiss. On the 20th day, Chen Hao, whose aura had not changed at all, suddenly emitted a profound and abstruse aura. Although it was only a sliver, it attracted the pure energy of heaven and earth in the entire grotto heaven. He, who had already reached the limit of the longevity art, unknowingly began to draw upon the energy of heaven and earth again. Chen Hao did not notice this at all. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. A strange fluctuation came from the grotto heaven. He, who was still immersed in cultivation and had forgotten about time and everything, was suddenly awakened by the strange fluctuation. It's only been a month? The chanting was interrupted. Chen Hao opened his eyes and looked at the great elder who had appeared in the grotto heaven with a little surprise. What's the matter? Good boy. However, the grand elder looked at the grotto heaven that he had spent so much effort to condense. He said, in a month, you've absorbed as much energy as old man in half a month. How is this possible? Old man is at the creation stage. Is that so? I don't seem to have stabilized my cultivation stage. Chen Hao said in confusion as he sensed the energy contained in the nascent soul. It seemed that other than becoming a little more condensed, there was not much change. However, what surprised Chen Hao was that his physical body seemed to have become a lot stronger. He did not even need to use his true yuan to make Chen Hao feel an explosive power. Chen Hao was sure that with just the strength of his physical body, he could smash a 1,000-foot-thick mountain into powder with one punch. The grand elder looked at Chen Hao as if he was looking at a monster. After a full half a minute, he sighed helplessly and said, forget it, forget it. Old man can't see through you no matter what. Let's go, I'll take you out. It had to be said that in the grand elder's senses, Chen Hao's cultivation stage aura was indeed not stable. He was not even at the early stage of the nascent soul stage. However, the energy that Chen Hao absorbed was real. Could it be that the energy could disappear in the powerful grotto heaven? This was something that could not be done. However, he really could not see where Chen Hao absorbed the energy. Part 1. Yesterday was very tragic. My classmate's son's 100-day celebration. Wu Shan had to write his story, so he did not go. He asked his wife to bring his daughter there. In the end, he received a call from his wife at around 7 o'clock. His daughter might have drunk too much fruit and had a stomachache. Wu Shan had no choice but to hurry over and bring his daughter to a small clinic. Even after taking the medicine, it was still painful. The medicine took a long time to take effect and they were far from home. With no other choice, Wu Shan could only use his true yuan to help warm his daughter's stomach. Finally, she did not cry out in pain. But Wu Shan could not stop. When he got home, his hands were emitting the smell of burnt leather. When I wrote the second chapter, I did not say that there was no third chapter. I was afraid that everyone would wait for too long, so I asked Sister Feng to help me send a separate chapter. Chapter 306. Star-Picking Peak Hall. When Chen Hao entered, Yuan Tai ran, the inner sect elders, and the disciples who were going to participate in the inter-sect competition had already gathered. The moment Chen Hao entered, everyone's eyes were locked on Chen Hao. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were also among them. Chen Hao, you haven't stabilized your realm? Yuan Tairan asked in surprise when he saw Chen Hao. In his opinion, Chen Hao's realm should have stabilized in a month's time in the Grand Elder's Grotto Heaven. However, Chen Hao's nascent soul early-stage aura was obviously not perfect. Not yet. The inner force cultivation method I'm cultivating is a little low-level and has reached its limit. Chen Hao replied frankly after cupping his fists. You didn't cultivate the 7 Stars Sutra? Yuan Tairan asked with a frown when he heard Chen Hao's words. When Chen Hao stepped out of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, he told him that he had obtained the 7 Stars unique art. The 7 Stars Sutra was obviously an Earth-level unique art and was enough for him to use before the Incarnation Realm. No, Chen Hao said. This. Yuan Tairan frowned slightly. If you change your cultivation method now. Yuan Tairan glanced at Tantai Lian and then at Helian Wuzi. He hesitated but didn't say anything. Instead, he said, it should be too late. We can only do this for the time being. Although he said that on the surface, he secretly sent a voice transmission. It's not completely impossible. Tantai Lian is considered your cultivation partner, right? She has already cultivated the 7 Stars Sutra to the last level. If you dual cultivate with her, you will be able to comprehend it several times faster. Although you might not be able to comprehend it completely before the start of the competition, you will at least be much stronger than you are now. This? Forget it. Sect leader, although the 7 Stars Sutra is an Earth-level unique art, my situation is a little special. I'm afraid I won't be able to last until the nascent soul realm. Therefore, I want to cultivate a heaven-level unique art directly. It's best if it's a heaven-level unique art so that I won't have to switch. Chen Hao sent a voice transmission. Are you sure? A top-grade heaven-class inner force mantra was not a heaven-class consummate skill. Without sufficient origin energy to support it, you won't be able to bring out your full strength. Sovereign, don't worry. Chen Hao said straightforwardly. Strictly speaking, Chen Hao hadn't asked for anything from the star-seizing sect since he'd entered. Now that he was doing this, he naturally wanted to get an absolute art from the sect master. After all, with Chen Hao's current realm, it was extremely difficult for him to obtain a heaven-tier top ultimate skill. Even if one encountered a fortuitous encounter, it would be very difficult to obtain. After all, the so-called opportunity and luck were closely related to a cultivator's realm. Alright, since you're so sure, I'll teach you a heaven-tier secret technique that only elders of the star-picking sect can cultivate. However, during the inter-sect competition, you shouldn't change your cultivation for the time being. There's definitely not enough time. After the two of them finished their telepathic conversation, Yuan Xingyao gave a detailed account of the inter-sect competition to the 31 disciples. He also introduced the disciples present to Chen Hao individually. He didn't hide the importance he attached to Chen Hao in the slightest. Moreover, it was obvious that he had surpassed everyone present. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian naturally felt that this was very reasonable. Yi Feishue, who had a good relationship with Chen Hao, also didn't have any objections. After all, she had watched Chen Hao's rapid rise. Although most of the disciples were vaguely dissatisfied, it was only a little. After all, Chen Hao's name was now famous in the cultivation world. He was no less inferior to the top geniuses of 9th rank sections. He wasn't someone they could compare to at all. However, Long Yukong, who was ranked first among the core disciples and had also reached the half-step nascent soul stage, looked at Chen Hao with hostility and disdain. He was just a disciple who had just entered the nascent soul stage. Long Yukong admitted that Chen Hao's potential was limitless, but he definitely didn't think that Chen Hao's current combat strength could compete with him. So what if he had killed the top geniuses of the 9th rank sects of the Southern Sea Islands? No matter how outstanding those geniuses were, they were only at the golden core and nascent soul stages. How could they compare to him now? There's still a month before the inter-sect competition officially begins. However, in reality, the final selection will begin in 10 days. We'll set off in 3 days. I'll give you 3 days to prepare. If you have any needs, the Zhaixing sect will do our best to satisfy you. This includes spirit weapons and treasured clothing. However, we're only a third-rank sect after all. We can only satisfy you with superior-grade spirit weapons. Each person can only have one. We can't do anything more than that, and it's only for use. Whether you can obtain it or not will depend on your performance. All right. Go back and think carefully about what you need the most. Only you know best. Tomorrow morning, the second elder will bring you to the treasury to choose. All right, you're dismissed. Apart from Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian, no one else was surprised by Yuan Tyron's words. Every disciple who was qualified to participate in the intersect competition would obtain the right to use a superior-grade spirit weapon. Whether they could obtain it in the end would depend on their performance in the intersect competition. But even so, it still made many disciples excited. Even Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were no exception. Superior-grade spirit weapons were not uncommon among Incarnation Realm experts. However, they were extremely rare for nascent soul disciples. Perhaps only the genius disciples of the 9th rank and 8th rank sects could possess such weapons. Of course, this referred to the sect's provision. Those obtained by one's own luck were an exception. Long Yukong's expression carried a hint of pride. He wasn't surprised at all. Clearly, this fellow already possessed a superior-grade spirit weapon. However, Chen Hao's expression didn't change at all. He looked as if he wasn't interested at all. That was indeed the case. Chen Hao had already obtained a set of doomsday armor. Although it was only a middle-grade armor, it was expensive because it contained the Dark Wind Calamity technique. However, the price of using the Dark Wind Calamity technique was too high. It wasn't an energy that Chen Hao could control at all. Once it was used, it would exhaust its energy. It was also because of this that Chen Hao didn't plan to use it again after using it once in the Dark Wind Ancient Cave. Now that he had stepped into the nascent soul realm, Chen Hao believed that he should be able to use it a few times in a full state. After all, he had already cultivated the Platinum Sky-Splitting Slash, which was comparable to the Dark Wind Calamity technique. Therefore, this Doomsday armor was definitely stronger than any superior-grade spirit weapon. As for weapons, Chen Hao's 5-element sword was definitely stronger than a superior-grade spirit weapon after fusing with the 5 elements divine beasts. Let's go! Chen Hao suddenly released 2 streams of energy to pull Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian. After saying that, he took the lead and soared into the sky. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian both glared at Chen Hao. Their expressions were obviously filled with dissatisfaction and anger. He didn't even look at them when they were fighting. How could they not have any opinions? In the hearts of the 2 women, Chen Hao didn't care about them at all. It seemed that other than cultivation, there was only cultivation in his heart. Including just now, when he arrived, he only glanced at the 2 women and didn't express or greet them in the slightest. However, the 2 of them also knew that they were imagining things too beautifully. Helian Wuzi had been separated from Chen Hao for 2 years. When they met again in the cultivation world, she had many fantasies. However, when she really met Chen Hao, she realized that all her fantasies were shattered. Chen Hao was still the same Chen Hao who only cared about cultivation. He was cold and domineering. There was only a slight change, but his essence didn't change at all. As for Tantai Lian, she was also imagining things that were far better than Helian Wuzi's. After all, in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, she had completely become Chen Hao's woman. However, after coming out, she saw a strong opponent, Helian Wuzi, and Chen Hao was no different from before. The 2 women watched Chen Hao fly away first and finally followed him. 10,000 Pills Pavilion. On a mountain peak, a handsome figure exuding a cold aura stood proudly on the peak. His eyes were like the stars in the night sky, but also like 2 terrifying sword lights, inadvertently exuding a destructive aura. It's been 5 months. I wonder if he has triggered heaven's punishment? If he steps into the nascent soul realm, then we can meet soon. If I use the destruction sword principle, he will definitely be more suspicious of my identity. However, it's just suspicion. Can't I just happen to comprehend the destruction sword principle? The figure that people didn't dare to approach stared at the distant starry sky and muttered. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, and under the empty starry sky, he actually looked indescribably charming. However, when this kind of charm appeared on a young man, any normal man who saw it would feel their hair stand on end and have goosebumps all over their bodies. I've activated it again. I've advanced to the peak of the mastery nascent soul realm, and I've comprehended the attribute will of the destruction sword principle. Even if he steps into the nascent soul realm, he should only be in the early stage. I can definitely beat him now, the young man said with certainty again. However, just as he finished speaking, he frowned slightly. Then, a self-deprecating smile appeared on his face as he said, I seem to think so every time. What a freak! This young man was none other than Leng Yihan, whom Chen Hao thought was lustful. He was also a disciple of the 10,000 Pill Pavilion who had the qualifications to participate in the sect competition. Moreover, he was the strongest disciple. Ling Tian sect. On a mountain peak, in a palace that looked like a paradise, a figure appeared on the mountain peak as fast as lightning. This figure was actually Xia Lanlan. Sister Lanlan? Is there news? Xia Lanlan had just landed on the mountain peak when a voice that sounded like the sound of nature appeared by her ears. Then, a devastatingly beautiful figure appeared strangely beside Xia Lanlan. Her pure and beautiful eyes were filled with dense nervousness and anticipation as she stared at Xia Lanlan. Xia Lanlan's expression was rather speechless as she said, how do you look like an expert at the incarnation stage? Look at how nervous you are. I really don't understand what exactly does he have. When she spoke up to hear, Xia Lanlan didn't continue speaking. That person had saved her and Duan Yufei's lives twice and stepped into the cultivation world from the 100 Empire ranking. In a short 2 years, he had already grown to a stage that she had to look up to. Such a person seemed to really be worthy of Yu being so nervous. Perhaps only such a person could make Yu so nervous. Second update. The third update is a little late. I suggest everyone watch it tomorrow. Thank you. Chapter 307. Sister Lanlan, tell me quickly. Xia Yu grabbed Xia Lanlan's hand and urged her. Sigh. Xia Lanlan's face sank and sighed. She wanted to tease Xia Yu, but when she saw Xia Yu's expression change, she didn't dare to tease her anymore. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. He successfully passed the heaven's punishment and stepped into the nascent soul realm. Furthermore, according to the information I've obtained, his heavenly punishment is extremely powerful. It's comparable to the heavenly punishment of a half-step to blessed realm cultivator, but he managed to withstand it. Therefore, if nothing goes wrong, you should be able to see him in the friendly competition between the clans. Really? Sister Lanlan, you can't lie to me. Xia Yu was pleasantly surprised and said in surprise. Why would I lie to you? How could the news from the Wan Tong Chamber of Commerce be fake? Xia Lanlan said. That's great. Big Sister Lanlan, when the time comes, can you? Xia Yu whispered into Xia Lanlan's ear, her beautiful face flushed red, and Xia Lanlan's eyes widened more and more. Peak of the middle stage of the incarnation realm. Very good. Qing Tian, you're a rare genius in our Yuan Gate. I want you to take first place in this inter-sect competition. Even if you meet Xia Yu, you can't give in. This concerns our Yuan Gate's reputation, and we can't let anyone surpass us. No matter how outstanding a woman is, she will be conquered by a man. Only by displaying absolute power and potential can you conquer her. Do you understand? Don't worry, Gate Master. No one can take away my first place. Chu Qingtian exuded a domineering aura as he said arrogantly. Chu Qingtian was obviously much more powerful than he was before he entered Sky City. His gains in the Sky City were also huge. After stepping out of the Sky City, he triggered the heaven's punishment and stepped into the incarnation realm. The solid foundation of the nascent soul realm and the accumulated power completely exploded. In less than 5 months, he broke through the early stage of the incarnation realm and advanced to the peak of the middle stage. This speed was definitely something to be proud of. Furthermore, he had already advanced the heavenly dominance technique to a higher level, the overlooking the heavens and earth technique. This made his aura even more domineering and domineering. This was the benefit of the sect's disciples cultivating according to the series of lost arts. There was no trouble for Chen Hao to change it back and forth. The Earth-grade hegemonic chi technique of heaven and earth and the heaven-grade hegemonic chi technique of heaven and earth were of the same origin. As long as the hegemonic chi technique of heaven and earth was cultivated to the peak of perfection, one could naturally step into the hegemonic chi technique of heaven and earth and cultivate it with half the effort. On top of that, Chu Qing Tian still had many trump cards. There was no reason for him not to be first. He did not even place Xia Yuyu, who had stepped into the incarnation realm earlier than him, in his eyes. Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and the other super geniuses of the 9th rank sects were also full of ambition and confidence. Sharpening the sword for 10 years, testing its edge in a single day. All of them were proud and arrogant. Who would be willing to admit defeat? All the sects, even the disciples of the low-level sects, hoped that they would be able to hold their heads up high in the intersect competition that was held once every 10 years and become famous in the cultivation world. This was not only a matter of fame, but also related to the interests and luck of the sect and oneself. To change or not to change? In the cultivation room, Chen Hao sat cross-legged and pondered as he looked at the jade scroll that the elder of imparting techniques had personally sent to him. If I don't change it with my current strength, I have a 60% chance of winning against someone who is half a step to the incarnation realm. But someone who is at the incarnation realm. If it is Chu Qing Tian, Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing and the others, I'm afraid I won't have any chance of winning. If I change it, the selection will begin in 10 days, and the real competition will begin in a month. It's just a selection. I can pass with just the strength of my physical body. Although a month's time is short, it should be enough for me to maintain my current true yuan. With the help of the spirit spring, spirit herbs, and supreme-grade primordial crystal stones, I will also have time to cultivate after the competition begins. What is there to be afraid of? Change. After a while, Chen Hao's eyes shone with arrogance as he made his choice. A year ago, when he was only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm, he had decided to participate. Moreover, he was arrogant and maintained a belief in everything he did. If he did not do it, he would not do it. If he did, he would do it to the best of his ability. So what if he was at the incarnation realm? He would trample on all of them, especially those who had once been hostile to him and were insufferably arrogant. After taking a deep breath, Chen Hao did not hesitate and directly poured his consciousness into the Jade Scroll. Star Technique, a supreme-grade heaven-class secret technique. It was a secret technique that could support a cultivator to the half-step primordial soul realm. Perhaps only Chen Hao, with his abnormal constitution and comprehension, would choose such a technique that was completely beyond his realm. Boom! In an instant, a majestic and pure consciousness appeared in Chen Hao's mind with a terrifying pressure. Along with the mantra, Yuan Tairan's image appeared in his mind. Obviously, Yuan Tairan had personally condensed this jade scroll. Not only had he integrated the mantra into it, but he had also explained it to Chen Hao in detail. At the same time, he had also condensed the aura and mysteries of this supreme-grade secret technique. This made it easier for Chen Hao to comprehend it when he cultivated. Chen Hao's consciousness was immersed in it, firmly imprinting the mantra and the mysteries of the aura in the depths of his mind. Immediately, Chen Hao did not immediately start cultivating. Instead, he verified it word by word in his mind over and over again. Only when he was sure that there were no mistakes did Chen Hao begin to activate the mantra. Without distractions, there was no way to be without thoughts. Ordinary cultivators would need to meditate for a long time to reach this state, but Chen Hao entered it in an instant. This was the benefit of having a strong soul force. After about an hour, a trace of the star technique's true yuan appeared in Chen Hao's dantian. This trace of true yuan would become the star technique's true yuan seed, absorbing and refining the longevity technique's true yuan in Chen Hao's dantian. This situation was dozens of times faster than the 3 days that Yuan Tairan had said. Moreover, Chen Hao was pleasantly surprised that a trace of Star Technique's True Yuan could be used to refine the Longevity Technique's True Yuan in his nascent soul. This was very similar to when he had obtained Itoda's nascent soul. The only difference was that once he started, Chen Hao could no longer use the Longevity Technique's True Yuan. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would have been wasted. Moreover, his consciousness had to be locked on to the Longevity Technique's True Yuan at all times. Otherwise, that weak trace of Star Technique's True Yuan would be swallowed up by the Longevity Technique's True Yuan. The next day, when it was time to choose a spirit weapon, Chen Hao did not go at all. On the third night, Chen Hao, who had been in seclusion for 3 days, finally stepped out of the palace. Step by step, he walked towards the palace closest to him, which was also where Helian Wuzi lived. Motherfucker! Not being able to use True Yuan is really inconvenient. Originally, it would only take a moment to reach the 2 palaces, but Chen Hao could only rely on his physical strength to walk over. At this time, he felt that the closest palace was not close at all. These 2 little girls, I don't really care about them. Both of them are so angry. If they don't agree, I'll be in trouble. Chen Hao said to himself as he walked. He did not want the sect master to know that he had changed to cultivate the Star Technique. Firstly, he did not want to be too shocking and worrying. Secondly, he did not want to be criticized. The sect master had given him the jade slip, but he had emphasized that he could not cultivate before the sect exchange. Therefore, Chen Hao could only ask the 2 girls for help. There was no other way. He could not fly. Dong dong dong. Chen Hao used his feet to measure the ground step by step. He walked to the front of Helian Wuzi's palace, raised his fist, and knocked on the palace door. At this time, it was already late at night. In the dead of the night, everything was silent. This heavy knocking sound was unusually ear-piercing. They were going to set off early tomorrow morning. Helian Wuzi had already stopped cultivating. At this moment, she was soaking comfortably in the bath. She closed her eyes and gently washed her delicate body. Her proud and full twin peaks were faintly discernible in the clear water. Her sparkling and translucent jade-like skin emitted a faint luster. Coupled with that beautiful little face, any man who saw this scene would be furious. However, Helian Wuzi, who was enjoying her last bath before setting off, was awakened by Chen Hao's knocking on the door. What is he doing here? Splash! Helian Wuzi jumped out of the bath like a conditioned reflex. Her graceful and exquisite delicate body was exposed. She hurriedly wiped her body and quickly put on her clothes. It was not pajamas. This was a habit that she had developed after Chen Hao repeatedly warned her. Of course, this was only a situation that appeared because of Chen Hao. It was also a habit that she had developed for Chen Hao. What is it? After Helian Wuzi opened the door, she looked at Chen Hao, who seemed to have restrained all his aura. She was expressionless and even a little cold as she asked, "Let's go in and talk. There is a very important matter." Chen Hao smiled slightly. He directly pushed away Helian Wuzi's small hand and entered the palace. What is so important that he is looking for her for? In another palace, Tantai Lien frowned and looked quite dissatisfied. Obviously, she was dissatisfied that Chen Hao looked for Helian Wuzi and not her. Such a loud knocking sound, even if Tantai Lien did not release her perception, she could still hear it. After the doors to the palace closed, Tantai Lien's consciousness carefully tried to enter the palace to investigate. However, there were many ceiling barriers that blocked her perception outside. Tantai Lien was even more dissatisfied. Sneaky. What are they doing? What is so important that you need to set up a restriction? Helian Wuzi asked curiously. However, her expression was still neither cold nor hot. It's nothing. I just came to see you. Have you used up the primordial crystal stones? What do you lack? If you need anything, remember to tell me. Don't make yourself suffer. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said in a very gentle voice. Chen Hao? Helian Wuzi looked as if she had seen a ghost. She stared at Chen Hao and asked, "If I'm not, could it be that you are?" Chen Hao said gloomily, "Tell me, what do you want? I don't want to fight with you now." "What fight?" I have something that I need you and Xiaoyan to help me with. I've changed to an inner force unique skill. What? Are you crazy? Helian Wuzi was instantly shocked. Don't worry. I don't want the sect leader and the others to know. So, when we set off tomorrow, I can only let you and Xiaoyan fly me. Also, they can't see it. So, we have to be a little closer. Third update. Thank you to the brothers and sisters who voted and tipped. Thank you. However, when she saw Helian Wuzi stepping out of the palace and frowning slightly, looking at her and Chen Hao, Tantai Lian mustered up her courage and walked to the side of the smiling Chen Hao. She gently held Chen Hao's arm and held their hands together. At the same time, she poured her own vital essence directly into Chen Hao's body and slowly rose into the air. Helian Wuzi snorted when she saw this. She scolded Tantai Lian for being thick-skinned in her heart. But when she saw how intimate they were, an indescribable emotion welled up in her heart. Everyone in the sect knows that I had a duel with her because of Chen Hao. They're holding hands, but if others see this, they'll think I lost to her. She's so thick-skinned that she's willing to help. She's just found out by the sect leader. What's there to help? Maybe the sect leader will think of a way to help him. How infuriating! Helian Wuzi thought to herself. Her beautiful face was cloudy. The more she thought about it, the more depressed she felt. Xiao Wu, why are you in a daze? Come here, let's go together. Chen Hao didn't show any expression on his face. But when he looked at Helian Wuzi, he knew that she could settle this in minutes. She's not afraid. What do I have to be afraid of? I have to be thick-skinned or I'll lose face. When Helian Wuzi thought of this, she flew to Chen Hao and Tantai Lian's side. Under Tantai Lian's surprised gaze, she held onto Chen Hao's left hand. Her face was red, but she was expressionless. She looked like she was fighting spirit. Not to be outdone, she raised her energy and poured it into Chen Hao's body. Aren't you? Okay, let's go quickly. We'll be late if we're late. Chen Hao interrupted Tantai Lian and said loudly. This was something that Tantai Lian could not say out loud. Otherwise, his deception of driving a wedge between them would be exposed. Can I change my mind? Helian Wuzi didn't hear Tantai Lian's unfinished question, but she didn't understand the meaning behind it. At the same time, she urged her energy to fly with Chen Hao and glared at Tantai Lian. Tantai Lian was so angry that she turned her face away and ignored this unruly and unreasonable little girl. Therefore, Chen Hao was like a big boss. He was hugged by the two beauties and rushed to the gathering at Zhai Xing Peak. When the three of them appeared in this manner, it really blinded everyone's eyes. Their eyeballs fell to the ground, and all the young disciples were envious. Even the sect master Yuan Tairan was a little dumbfounded. How could one be so good at picking up girls when they were cultivating? Yuan Tairan, the first elder, the fourth elder, and the seventh elder led the team for this inter-sect competition. After leading the team to Jiaxing City, they directly took the teleportation array and set off for Dongxian City. Dongxian City was the closest city to the Yuan Gate. It was also the most famous, largest, and most prosperous city in the Eastern Continent. It was the headquarters of the Eastern Continent Immortal Dao Alliance, and there were many large chambers of commerce. The city itself occupied an area of nearly 10,000 miles. If the Eastern Continent was compared to a dynasty, then Dongxian City would be the imperial city. The inter-sect competition that was held once every 10 years was held in Dongxian City. Even if they took the teleportation array from the Jiaxing sect, it would still take more than a day to arrive. In the teleportation array, Chen Hao couldn't waste more than a day's time. Therefore, when he stepped out of the Jiaxing sect, although Chen Hao's eyes were open and his mind wasn't completely immersed in cultivation, he carefully began to refine his true yuan. In any case, with the two girls' energy concealment, even if others could see that Chen Hao wasn't circulating his true yuan, no one suspected anything. After all, being a boss had always been like this. Moreover, under Chen Hao's instructions, the three of them followed behind the team. This made Yi Feixue, who wanted to come over and chat with Chen Hao, shrink back, as she didn't want to disturb the three of them. However, if one observed carefully, they would find that although the three of them were intimate, they didn't seem to be harmonious. As the boss, Chen Hao had a faint smile on his face from beginning to end. His deep black eyes seemed to be unfocused and motionless. As for the two beautiful girls, they turned their faces to the side and didn't even look at each other. Not only did they not give off a harmonious feeling, but they were filled with the smell of war without smoke. Dongxian City. At this moment, groups of cultivators from all over the eastern continent were constantly emerging from the transportation arrays of countless large merchant guilds. Some were rogue cultivators, some were sect disciples, and the most eye-catching ones were undoubtedly the small teams led by the upper echelons of the sections. Without a doubt, these were the young geniuses who came to participate in the inter-sect competition. As the inter-sect competition held once every 10 years in the eastern continent, the flow of people in Dongxian City had reached an unprecedented scale a month ago. As the time of the competition approached, the flow of people increased. This was a grand event that all the sects in the eastern continent had to participate in. This was a grand event that affected all the cultivators in the eastern continent. It was a grand event that concerned the sect's grades, benefits, luck, and future. All the super young geniuses of the sects in the eastern continent would gather, representing the future strength of the eastern continent. In the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's large transportation array, a dazzling light flashed once again. A group of people appeared in the transportation array at the same time, and the one leading them was Yuan Tairan. Phew! The moment they walked out of the transportation array, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. Obviously, traveling non-stop between teleportation formations for more than a day was an extremely boring thing to do. At this moment, they finally arrived at their destination, Dongxian City. Third grade sect, Jiaxing sect? Is this sect leader Yuan? Welcome, welcome. I am an inner disciple of the Yuan Gate. This is the residence token of your Jiaxing sect. Several Yuan Gate disciples stood proudly at the entrance of the transportation array. All of them were full of energy and spirit, and their appearances were impressive. More importantly, the first impression they gave off was that the word arrogance was written all over their faces. After seeing the attire of Yuan Tairan and the rest, one of them stepped forward and threw a token at Yuan Tairan. He was only a half-step nascent soul inner disciple. If he had such an attitude towards Chen Hao and the other disciples, it was still acceptable. After all, the Yuan Gate that dominated the entire eastern continent had always been this arrogant. However, such an arrogant attitude towards the sect leader of the Jiaxing sect was a little too much. After all, he was a half-step to the creation realm expert. Even the elders and sect leader of the Yuan Gate would have to exchange a few pleasantries. Yuan Tairan frowned slightly. The first elder, fourth elder, and seventh elder also did not look too good. However, they could not flare up. Not only that, they also had to stop the disciples from being dissatisfied. At this moment, Chen Hao's eyes, which seemed to be in a daze, also regained their consciousness and looked at the Yuan Gate disciple. The disciple's eyes were also filled with a trace of mockery and naked jealousy as he looked at Chen Hao, who was hugging two girls in each arm. Chen Hao's photographic memory allowed him to instantly recognize this disciple. It was the disciple who had participated in the test in Sky City. However, this disciple's strength was not enough for Chen Hao to pay attention to his name. Seeing the other party's mocking eyes, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a trace of disdain. However, he did not fly into a rage. What the hell? He's too arrogant. One day, when our Jiaxing sect becomes powerful, I will definitely kick his balls until they explode. Fuck his mother, what's so arrogant about? He's just a half-step nascent soul cultivator. I can kill him with one slap. When Yuan Tairan led the group out of the teleportation array area and into the crowded city, a burly and barbaric youth from the Jiaxing sect immediately said angrily, "First update. Sorry, the update is a little late. There will still be a third update today. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation." Chapter 309. The disciples of the Yuan Gate are all like this. They don't know what etiquette is. Even their outer disciples are like tortoises who dare to do whatever they want in the cultivation world, let alone a half-step nascent soul cultivator like him. Let's just bear with it. After all, they are the strongest sect in the eastern continent, another disciple said. Yuan Tairan and the four elders didn't say anything as they listened to the disciples' discussion. At the same time, several disciples of the Yuan Gate were also staring at Chen Hao, who was walking at the back and being held by two great beauties. Their mocking gazes turned into naked jealousy. Both Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian were rare beauties, and they were obviously very young. However, they had both reached the nascent soul stage, especially Helian Wuzi, who was at the late stage of the nascent soul stage. Being able to have one of these Tao companions was already a blessing accumulated from 8 lifetimes. However, Chen Hao was actually hugging both of them at the same time and at the same place. In particular, although Chen Hao didn't have any intimate contact with the beautiful Chen Shui in the city in the sky, their relationship was definitely not simple in these people's hearts. Fuck, this brat's luck with women is too damn good. That disciple's gaze flickered as he stared at the graceful backs of the two women. He was filled with jealousy. Senior brother, that fellow is Chen Hao, whose name has shaken the cultivation world. Who else could it be other than him? Damn it, I've long received news that 2 female super geniuses have appeared in the star-picking sect. One is Helian Wuzi, and the other is Tantai Lian. Moreover, they both came from the same empire as this brat and entered the cultivation world from the 100 empire ranking. I didn't expect that they were both beauties and had an affair with this brat. Damn it. However, this brat won't have a good time for long. That disciple said sinisterly. Others didn't know what Chu Qingtian wanted to do to Chen Hao, but he knew. Not to mention Chu Qingtian's feelings for Chen Shui, just the cultivation talent that Chen Hao had displayed was something that the arrogant and domineering Chu Qingtian wouldn't let go of. Such a person would never allow anyone to steal his luck and limelight. Outside the entrance of the Chamber of Commerce, there were countless cultivators gathered. Very few of them were here to investigate the news of the various sects, while most of them were here to admire the genius disciples of the various sections. Everyone knew that they would be able to see the lineup of the participating sects at first glance. To be able to witness the super geniuses of the younger generation was something that many cultivators yearned for. After the people from the star-picking sect came out, the crowd burst into discussion and became the focus of everyone's attention. The star-picking sect had never received this kind of treatment before. After all, they were only a third-rank sect. Compared to the thousands of other sects, they were not eye-catching at all. Even their super genius disciples did not receive much attention. But today was different. This was because the star-seizing sect had produced a monstrous genius who shocked the entire world of cultivation, Chen Hao. At the same time, there were also rumors that 2 more exceptional geniuses had appeared. Moreover, they were female disciples. This was especially true for Helian Wuzi, who had just become the champion of the 100 Empire ranking. She was originally just the champion of the 100 Empire ranking. Naturally, not many people paid attention to her. However, not only was she the champion, she was also a stunning beauty. Even so, there were not many people who paid attention to her. Most importantly, a disciple who had just entered the world of cultivation from the 100 Empire ranking had actually obtained the right to participate in the intersect competition in less than a year. This was too shocking. That was the nascent soul stage. Furthermore, the rumors said that Helian Wuzi was still in the late stage of the nascent soul stage. Who could compare to such a speed of advancement? Even Xia Yu's advancement speed was much slower than hers. That's Chen Hao, right? What a beautiful woman. Isn't this too awesome? Hugging left and right. Arrogant, truly arrogant. Someone who dares to be so high profile must be very powerful. No wonder he was able to suppress Chu Qingtian among the many exceptional geniuses in the city in the sky and obtain the 6th place in the potential test. However, his aura doesn't seem to be very powerful. TSK, you don't know this, do you? I heard that countless people wanted to kill him in the city in the sky. But who saw him in the end? Everyone who saw him die. His concealment skills are definitely superb. Furthermore, he was only in the golden core stage then. Now he's already in the nascent soul stage. I really don't know how powerful he is now. He's at least comparable to the late-stage nascent soul stage super geniuses of the 9th rank sects. He killed several exceptional geniuses of the 9th rank sects of the South Sea Archipelago. 2 exceptional beauties. What more could a man ask for if he could have one of them? Damn it, they can't be compared. The discussions in the crowd were unbridled. It was difficult for the people of the Jiaxing sect to not hear them. Furthermore, they were all talking about Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian. Even though Chen Hao had long known that he was a little powerful in the world of cultivation, he didn't expect the commotion to be so great. Chen Hao was a little conflicted. One had to know that although this fellow was filled with arrogance and unruliness, it was still in his bones. He was not the crazy Li Yuan from his previous life. He, who had fused with his soul, had never liked arrogant and domineering fellows who had arrogance written all over their faces. Of course, he disdained to do so. But now, because of his special situation, it seemed that he was indeed a little too high profile, but there was no other way. Since there was no other way, why should he care? Therefore, other than the slight awkwardness in the beginning, Chen Hao's expression was calm after a while. He enjoyed the envious discussions of the crowd, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, filled with an indescribable evil charm. On the other hand, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian's cheeks were burning. They couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Especially after noticing Chen Hao's expression, the 2 girls couldn't help but scorn him and pinch him viciously. Yuan Tairan led the group and walked very quickly. Although they couldn't fly under the restriction of the flight prohibition order, it was as if the ground had shrunk. In just a few minutes, they arrived at the largest palace complex in the core of Dongxian City. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian only heaved a sigh of relief when they stepped into the courtyard that had been arranged for them. Haha. To everyone's surprise, after stepping into the courtyard, Yuan Tairan directly released a powerful restriction to seal off the aura of the entire courtyard. He laughed loudly and looked at Chen Hao and the 2 girls with a trace of admiration. Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect that our Jiaxing sect could cause such a big commotion. Chen Hao, Xiaowu, Xiaolian, this is all thanks to you. Not bad, not bad. I'm afraid that even the 8th rank sects can't compare to us. Ha. Keep it up, keep it up. We have to be so high profile. Let them be envious. Ha. Long Yukong's brows were deeply furrowed. He was obviously very unhappy with the sect leader's attitude. But now he had no choice but to accept it. Chen Hao's reputation was too great. The only thing he could rely on was to achieve a better result than Chen Hao in the intersect competition. He also knew that if there were no accidents, Chen Hao would completely surpass him in the near future. Without a doubt, this was his only chance to overshadow Chen Hao. Although he couldn't accept it, he had to accept it. This kind of person wasn't someone he could compete with. Moreover, he could vaguely feel that someone like Chen Hao would not be limited to the small Jiaxing sect. Therefore, although he was depressed, he wasn't so stupid as to think of making an enemy out of Chen Hao. Hearing the sect leader's words, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian let go of Chen Hao's arm at the same time. Chen Hao, on the other hand, smiled awkwardly and said, "Sect leader, what are the arrangements for the exchange competition? My cultivation base hasn't stabilized yet. If there's nothing else for now, I'll go cultivate. The selection test will officially begin the day after tomorrow at noon. When it's our Jiaxing sect's turn, it'll probably be 3 or 4 days later. Don't worry and go cultivate. I'll call you when the time comes. Chen Hao, don't give yourself too much pressure. Although it concerns our Jiaxing sect's vital interests, we can't eat until we're fat. At most, we'll be able to ascend to a 5th rank sect. After all, the results of the intersect competition are only an indicator of a sect's ranking. Our foundation is still lacking after all. It's not something that can be improved in a short time. Moreover, you're only at the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Your cultivation base is a little low. This time, you'll have to rely on Yukong to aim for the highest ranking. Understood? Then I'll go cultivate first. Wait a moment. Someone will come to count the participating disciples later. You can choose your rooms first. I'll call someone over," said the Grand Elder. After he finished speaking, he walked out directly. A moment later, an old man with a powerful aura and the Grand Elder arrived at the courtyard where the Jiaxing sect was located. The symbol on the old man's chest was the Ling Tian sect. The Eastern Continent intersect competition was organized by the 10 great 9th-rank sections. This old man was the Ling Tian sect's inner court elder. His aura was not much weaker than Yuan Tairan's. It was obvious that he was also a half-step to the creation stage expert. The great elder was respectful and reverent in front of him, and he seemed to be flattered by this favor. After all, the Grand Elder was only at the peak of the mastery stage of the embodiment stage. The gap was not small. Although they were both inner court elders, the Ling Tian sect was a high and mighty grade 9 sect. Even a grade 8 sect could not compare to it, let alone him. The Grand Elder did not expect that the other party would not put on airs at all and would talk and laugh with him. However, the Grand Elder soon realized that the other party's problem had shifted to Chen Hao. Only then did the Grand Elder realize that the other party had taken a liking to Chen Hao. When he thought about how the Ling Tian sect had protected Chen Hao because of Fan Fong, he was even more certain. However, he was not worried that the other party would poach Chen Hao away. The concept of sects in the cultivation world was very strong. Taking a liking to someone was one thing, but it was just forming good karma. This was the power of a super sect. The 10 great sects were also 10 factions. The low-grade sects also had their own grade 9 sects that they supported. However, a weak force like a grade 3 sect was not qualified to take sides. Second update. Third update tonight. Chapter 310. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, Brother Yuan, it's been a while. Your star-picking sect has been blessed with good fortune for the past 2 years. This year, there's a chance for you to break through 2 levels. Congratulations! The Ling Tian sect's elder said enthusiastically without waiting for Yuan Tairan to speak after entering the courtyard. Thank you for your kind words, Brother Xia. Yuan Tairan replied with a fist salute. Xia? Is he Yu Yu's elder? Chen Hao thought to himself when he heard how Yuan Tairan addressed him. The Ling Tian sect's inner court elder was indeed a direct descendant of the Ling Tian sect. The third inner court elder was the brother of the Ling Tian sect's sect leader. He was Xia Lanlin's grandfather, Xia Lingyun. Xia Lingyun's eyes glowed as he slowly scanned the 31 disciples of the star-picking sect. At this moment, Chen Hao and the others all felt a faint pressure. When his gaze swept over Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien, he paused for a moment. He was secretly surprised. The life aura of the two naturally couldn't escape his senses, especially Helian Wuzi. To have such a cultivation at such a young age was definitely very, very shocking. In the end, Xia Lingyun's gaze stopped on Chen Hao. Little guy, you're Chen Hao, aren't you? Xia Lingyun stroked his shiny black beard with a benevolent smile on his face. He stared at Chen Hao and asked all of a sudden. That's me. Chen Hao saluted with a fist salute. Although he was slightly surprised, he remained calm. Not bad. You're indeed a dragon among men. Old man, you're Lanlin's grandfather. Thank you for saving Lanlan and Yu Fei's lives twice. You're too kind, senior. It's nothing. Moreover, Brother Duan has given me a reward. Chen Hao said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. No matter how high the reward is, it can't be compared to the lives of my granddaughter and grandson-in-law, can it? This is our Ling Tian sect's VIP token. Yours is different from the others. It's very special. You can't reject it, huh? Xia Lingyun said as he stared at Chen Hao meaningfully. As he spoke, he sent out a burst of energy and a silver token appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. Sensing the faint aura on the token, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of excitement. This aura was very weak. Even Yuan Tairan, who was not far away, was confused by the other powerful aura on the token. He did not notice, or rather, did not care, that insignificant aura. Brother Xia, you're too polite. Yuan Tairan said, slightly surprised. Although the VIP token of the Ling Tian sect was not a spirit weapon nor was there anything profound about it, it was still something that many cultivators in the eastern continent dreamed of having. With it, there would be no obstruction in the area under the jurisdiction of the Ling Tian sect. Moreover, all the chambers of commerce and forces under the protection of the Ling Tian sect in the eastern continent could enjoy VIP treatment. This was undoubtedly very convenient for cultivators who were training in the cultivation world. Chen Hao, aren't you going to thank Elder Xia? Thank you, Senior Xia. Chen Hao took the token and cupped his fists to express his gratitude. This is what you deserve. Perform well in the inter-sect competition. Chu Qing Tian, Wu Ruochen, and the others can be said to be a gathering of powerhouses. The competition is very, very intense. Big sects have their own views. Brother Yuan, your star-picking sect has a total of 31 people. Based on the number of people, you're considered average even among 5th grade sections. However, if you want to be promoted to a 5th grade sect, it'll depend on their performance. Here are 31 tokens. Let them refine it with their blood, input the information, and wear it on their bodies. Old man, I'll take my leave first. All right. Thank you, Brother Xia. Yuan Tairan was secretly surprised as he watched Xia Lingyun disappear in front of him. He did not understand what Xia Lingyun meant. Did Xia Lingyun think that Chen Hao could compete with Chu Qing Tian, Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and the other top geniuses who had stepped into the incarnation stage? Even if he could, it was because of his potential and not his strength. After all, Chen Hao had just stepped into the nascent soul stage and had yet to stabilize his cultivation base. What was even more strange was Xia Lingyun's words about big sects having their own views. It was even more baffling. What did this have to do with Chen Hao? Sectarian views? Fuck your fucking sectarian views. After stepping into the cultivation room, Chen Hao's face that was as calm as water suddenly flashed with a hint of coldness without any warning as he scolded angrily. He was not scolding Xia Lingyun. Chen Hao could feel that Xia Lingyun's gaze was filled with admiration and sincere gratitude when he looked at him. Otherwise, with his arrogant character, why would he be so courteous to Xia Lingyun who was a junior? Others might not understand Xia Lingyun's words, but Chen Hao could. Without a doubt, he was clearly telling Chen Hao that even with Chen Hao's current reputation in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world, he could not make the Ling Tian sect accept his relationship with Xia Yuyu. The biggest obstacle would be Chu Qing Tian and Wu Ruochen. When he recalled Xia Lingfeng, the sect leader of the Ling Tian sect, and Xia Yu's father, Xia Yutong, especially Xia Yutong's face, Chen Hao could not suppress his anger. He could not do anything to them, but he wanted to use his own strength to slap them back. Since they looked down on others, then he would become an existence that they could only look up to. So what if they were a grade 9 sect? Yuyu belongs to me, Chen Hao. Nobody can stop me. Nobody can have her. If you push me too far, I'll cook the rice with you and give birth to my grandson. Cough cough. When he thought of the innocent and flawless Xia Yuyu, her beautiful figure, clear and innocent eyes, her angel-like pure, cute and holy face, and her unrestrained and pure personality, Chen Hao, who was boiling with anger, instantly calmed down and looked at the VIP token that Xia Lingyun gave him. With Chen Hao's character, he would never accept any gift related to the Ling Tian sect. However, due to the uniqueness of this token, he had no choice but to accept it temporarily. This was because there was a trace of Xia Yuyu's aura on the token. It was the aura of the 9 revolution heaven and earth yin-yang form. Such a low-level aura was the most familiar aura to both Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu. How could Chen Hao forget it? However, Chen Hao did not understand why Yuyu left her aura on the token. Was it just to let him accept the VIP token? Obviously, it was not that simple. Both of them had been cultivating in the ruin for more than a year and had always been in a state of telepathy. They had a deep understanding of each other's character, so how could Xia Yuyu not know? However, the token was not a communication talisman, nor was it a jade slip. What kind of mystery could it have? Chen Hao urged his mind slightly. Although he could not use his true origin, it was very easy for him to release such an aura that was very low level to him. Hiss hiss hiss. What Chen Hao did not expect was that as soon as his aura came into contact with the token, a strange fluctuation suddenly emitted from the token. It was like a wisp of green smoke drifting out, causing Chen Hao to widen his eyes in surprise. Hao, a devastatingly beautiful figure, both real and illusory, suddenly appeared in front of Chen Hao. A voice that was as pleasant as the sound of nature, carrying a trace of surprise and excitement, shouted out from the illusory figure. Hao. Only Yu would address Chen Hao as such. Only Yu, who was older than Chen Hao and called herself Big Sister, would call him by such a nickname that Chen Hao could not bear. Why are you in a daze? This is Yu's incarnation. After a cultivator stepped into the incarnation stage, they could rely on a wisp of true origin that contained their mind to condense an external incarnation that was connected to the main body. The farther away the external incarnation was, the weaker it would be. If it was by their side, they could rely on powerful magical treasures to condense an incarnation and increase their battle strength by several times. This was because the main body and the incarnation were completely connected. However, although Xia Yu was also living in this palace, she was in the deepest part of the palace that only 9th rank sects had the qualifications to live in. They were separated by at least 10 li. To be able to use a wisp of true origin to condense an incarnation that was both real and illusory was already very impressive. After entering the cultivation world, although they had coincidentally met twice and talked once, it was under the condition that they had not recognized each other. The third time they met, although Xia Yu was only an incarnation, the two of them were alone. At this moment, Xia Yu was the real Xia Yu. In front of Chen Hao, there was not the slightest change due to time or distance, nor was there any barrier. Hearing the familiar voice, Chen Hao's heart that was as firm as a boulder was almost instantly moved by Xia Yu. The corner of his mouth naturally revealed a smile as he said, "This incarnation of yours is really ugly. I can't even see it clearly, so hateful." For Yu to be able to condense an incarnation from so far away is already very impressive. Hao, I heard from Sister Lan that you have made many good friends, and they are all very beautiful. Yu, don't listen to her nonsense. How are there many? One is called Tantai Lian, one is called Chen Shui, one is called Helian Wuzi, and there are many others that Sister Lan did not mention. Yu knows all of them. Tantai Lian obtained the Phoenix inheritance with you, Chen Shui trained with you, and Sister Lan said that she is very powerful. Helian Wuzi has only recently entered the cultivation world and is from your kingdom. She is also very powerful. Cough. Chen Hao awkwardly coughed twice. He did not expect Xia Yu to know his situation like the back of her hand. It must be that girl Xia Lan who was gossiping and maliciously making up stories to increase the number. Of course, it must also be because Xia Yu had been collecting information about him all along. However, Chen Hao was clear that Xia Lan was thinking for Yu. But what would Chen Hao say? This was a very complicated question. It was a question that made Chen Hao's head hurt and unable to answer. Explain? This was the truth. What's the point of explaining? As for concealing, lying, and temporarily placating, Chen Hao disdained to do it. Hao, you can't treat them better than Yu, okay? Just when Chen Hao's head was about to explode and he did not know what to say, the pure and cute Xia Yu's illusory figure gently pulled Chen Hao's arm. It was just an action, and she did not really pull him, as she said in a seemingly pitiful manner. Good. You are still the best. Chen Hao was a little emotional as he agreed. This was the absolute truth. Even Chen Hao did not expect Xia Yu to be so reasonable and considerate. Third update. Thank you for your tips and votes. Thank you very much. Before the 17th of next month, Dark Mountain will definitely pay off its debt and crazily work for a month. Also, recommend the new book of the Southern Dynasty's Great God Chen, Human God Introduction. A scholar meets a fox immortal, living off a woman with meat. Please try something new. Fighting for incense in the mortal world, bestowing the seal to become a god, writing the passage of time. This world originally did not have a god, but as more people worshipped, there was a god. From a human to a god, walking with a sword. This book is even more wonderful than Crossing Strange Stories. Welcome everyone to come and support. Thank you. Chapter 311. I Can't Treat Them Better Than You, and I Have to Treat You the Best were two completely different concepts, not to mention something like, I can't live without her. How could Chin Hao not be moved? The two chatted for a while more before Xia Yuyu's incarnation exhausted her mind and energy and disappeared in front of Chen Hao. Although Xia Yuyu was looking forward to Chen Hao's performance in the intersect competition, she didn't mention anything about it. She didn't want to give Chen Hao any pressure. Although she knew from Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei that Chen Hao's battle prowess was unfathomable and exceeded his realm by many times, Chen Hao had only just stepped into the nascent soul realm. Furthermore, she could sense that Chen Hao's aura had yet to stabilize. It was impossible for him to reach the height that her grandfather had mentioned. Not to mention Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing, who had already stepped into the incarnation realm. Even some half-step incarnation realm experts weren't something that Chen Hao could contend against. Naive and pure didn't mean that she was stupid. On the contrary, Xia Yuyu was extremely intelligent. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to have such a cultivation at such a young age. She already had her own plans. Chen Hao stared at the dissipating Xia Yuyu and took a deep breath. He pondered, there are only 10 days until the official competition. With my current speed, I'm obviously still a little lacking. I have to think of a way to increase my speed. I wonder if the outline of the Great Tao is useful? Chen Hao's mind lit up as he thought of the outline of the Great Tao. Previously, in the Grand Elder's Cave, although Chen Hao didn't have any comprehension of the mysterious outline of the Great Tao, just by reciting it over and over again, he felt a mysterious aura. Although it was only a trace, it allowed Chen Hao, who had already reached his limit, to devour a large amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth, which made the Grand Elder a little surprised. More importantly, at that time, Chen Hao clearly felt that his body had become stronger. Let's try it first. Thinking of this, Chen Hao waved the sword in his mind and cut off all distracting thoughts. His mind was immersed in cultivation. He first urged the star formula to start refining the secret longevity formula. When this kind of refining could be done on its own without the urging of Chen Hao's mind, a wisp of Chen Hao's mind began to recite the outline of the Great Tao. Mysterious and profound words floated in Chen Hao's mind. Gradually, his mind entered the state of thoughtless tranquility. The chanting voice in his mind sounded again and again, from weak to strong. An hour later, Chen Hao's recitation resounded in Chen Hao's mind like the evening drum and morning bell. At this moment, a mysterious aura appeared once again. On the other hand, Chen Hao forgot the time and everything once more. He seemed to have entered a dazed and ignorant state, like a baby that was gradually gaining intelligence in his mother's womb. This. In his dantian, it used to take a few minutes to refine a wisp of true essence, but now the refining speed was getting faster and faster. Compared to the vast and boundless secret longevity formula's true essence, the tiny wisp of star essence was like an ant to an elephant. But this ant's appetite, under this mysterious aura, became extremely terrifying. Not only was the devouring speed astonishing, the growth speed was equally astonishing. Unfortunately, Chen Hao, who was immersed in the state of oblivion, could not sense the changes in his dantian. Otherwise, he would have been shocked to death. This speed was tens of times faster than his original refining speed, almost 100 times faster. Who would have thought that the number of qualified genius disciples this time would reach over 30,000? This is absolutely unprecedented. This is a sign that a great era is coming. On the afternoon of the third day since the star-picking sect arrived at Dongxian City, countless cultivators with powerful auras had gathered in the center of the city, on a huge training field with a radius of 50 miles. Hundreds of participating disciples from the various sects were divided into countless areas according to their sect's grade. They were scattered all around the training field. For mortals, it was impossible to see the entire training field with their naked eyes. However, for cultivators of the nascent soul stage and above, it was no problem at all. What no one expected was that the number of qualified disciples for this year's intersect competition far exceeded that of previous years. It had more than doubled in strength. This was simply inconceivable. Other than the 30,000 participating disciples, countless cultivators had gathered around the training field to watch. In the center of the training field, 10 semicircular objects stood side by side. The highest point was 100 feet tall and only a few dozen centimeters thick, like a windshield. The surface was covered with mysterious runes, and in the center of the runes were 100 purple crystals evenly distributed from the lowest to the highest. Each crystal was the size of a human head and could be seen from both sides. These are the vital energy testing lamps. In previous years, only 60 of them were lit to qualify for the official competition. This year, it was just announced yesterday that because of the unprecedented number of participants, the number has been raised to 70. In the area where the star-picking sect was, the Grand Elder pointed at the semicircular object in the center of the training field and spoke to the disciples behind him. Other than Qin Hao, all 30 disciples were present. 70. Grand Elder, doesn't that mean we need the strength of the peak of the intermediate stage of the nascent soul stage? One of the disciples frowned. Yes. There's nothing we can do about it. Everyone just has to try their best. The results of the test are useful as well. We mustn't give up just because we can't reach 70. We can't let go of any hope. This time, the number of participants has skyrocketed mainly in the first grade and second grade sections. The number of third grade sects and above did not increase much. The 31 of us are comparable to a fifth grade sect. While the Grand Elder was explaining to everyone, the disciples of the Origin Gate, Sky Sword Sect, Ling Tian Sect, and countless other sects were watching the star-picking sect from afar with various thoughts. Most of their gazes were locked on Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian. One had to admit that their age, appearance, and cultivation base were comparable to the top geniuses of the 9th grade sects, especially Helian Wuzi. It could be said that the small 3rd grade sect, the star-picking sect, had shaken the cultivation world the most in the past 2 years. However, what surprised these people was that Qin Hao, whose name shook the cultivation world, was not among them. Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, and the others from the Ling Tian sect were also wondering why Qin Hao was not here. However, Xia Yu was not surprised at all. She knew that Qin Hao had not stabilized his cultivation base yet. Naturally, he was seizing the time to cultivate. There were also the disciples of the Flying Sword sect. Chen Hao had killed the number 1 genius disciple of the Flying Sword sect, Fan Fong. It was a big event that shook the cultivation world. The Flying Sword sect had lost all face. How could they not hate the star-picking sect? Naturally, they had to pay attention to them. Of course, Lung Yihan was also paying attention to the star-picking sect. The time has come. The selection test has officially begun. Due to the skyrocketing number of participants this year, all sects please do not delay and begin the test immediately. The 10 direction test lamps will be conducted at the same time. 10 sects will be tested according to the order of their names. Begin now. First grade sects, Lockhart Valley, Great Void Sect, Jade Drop Palace. An old man who was in charge of hosting the test on the rostrum announced in a majestic and forceful voice. Immediately, the 10 first-grade sects that were called appeared in front of the corresponding test lamps under the lead of their elders. When the disciples began their test, the old man in charge pointed out another 10 first-grade sects to prepare. Everyone had 2 chances to get the best result out of the 2 tests. If they could not light up 70 lamps, they would be eliminated. During the test, after activating the token that was issued, the disciple's sect and name would be displayed at the top of the test lamp. Low-grade sects were not only few in number, but their cultivation base was also weak. On average, only 1 out of 100 disciples would appear. Many of them could light up 69 lamps, losing by only 1 lamp. There were close to 200 first-grade sects, and each of them would take at least 2 minutes to complete the test. There was no other way. Everyone had to raise their strength to the peak before they dared to attack. Nobody dared to waste 2 chances. When the close to 200 first-grade sects finished their test, 6 hours had already passed. The test for the day had also ended. The one with the best result actually lit up 80 lamps, which caused quite a stir. 80 lamps meant that he was at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm. And that disciple was only at the late-stage nascent soul realm. The next afternoon, when the second-grade sects were halfway through their test, the great elders specially went back to call Chen Hao. When he returned to the martial arts arena, the great elder's expression was filled with intense surprise and shock. All the disciples of the Zhaixing sect, except for Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian, looked at Chen Hao in disbelief. It was as if they were looking at a monster. Middle-stage nascent soul realm. How was this possible? They all knew that Chen Hao's inner force cultivation technique was too low-level. It was already the limit for him to stabilize his cultivation base. How could he reach the mid-stage nascent soul realm? But the truth was right in front of them. The moment Chen Hao appeared with an indifferent expression, countless gazes locked onto him from afar. That's Chen Hao. He actually reached the mid-stage nascent soul realm. I wonder how much his combat strength has increased? When he was at the late-stage golden core realm, he already killed a nascent soul realm genius. Fuck, he's already at the mid-stage nascent soul realm? Some of the 8th grade and 9th grade sect's super genius disciples who had seen Chen Hao began to discuss. How, a heavenly voice was the first to reach Chen Hao's ears. Brother Chen. Duan Yufei's voice followed. Chen Hao looked into the distance. Duan Yufei, Xia Lanlan, and Xia Yuyu were sitting together, staring at him from afar. Chen Hao smiled slightly. His eyes met Xia Yu's for a moment before they both looked away. How, you've actually reached the mid-stage nascent soul realm? Xia Yuyu's expression did not change. Her expression did not change, but her excited voice resounded in Chen Hao's ears. Chen Hao, you're finally here. I heard that you were sharpening your spear at the last minute. I didn't want to disturb you. At the same time, what made Chen Hao's head hurt was that Leng Yihan's voice also sounded. And he seemed to be very excited. First update. I'm not in a good state. I'm sorry for the late update. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 312. Chen Hao shuddered and almost had goosebumps. Especially when he thought about the promise he still owed Leng Yihan, Chen Hao was a little scared. If this guy asked to do that with him, he would definitely not agree, but he would still be disgusted to death. But Chen Hao could not get angry. After all, this was only what Chen Hao felt. Leng Yihan was excited, but he did not show that he wanted to develop that kind of relationship with him, right? After Chen Hao replied to Leng Yihan indifferently, he was multitasking. He chatted with Yuyu and replied to Yuan Tairen, who was so excited that his face was red. He also had to deal with the greetings of the sect disciples and chat with Xiao Wu and Xiaolian. When he arrived, Chen Hao had already sat between Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian, who looked like enemies but were sitting next to each other. He was already a master, so why would he care about this little intimacy? Not to mention, Chen Hao was in a good mood now. In any case, Chen Hao did not expect that the primary outline of the Great Tao would contain such a magical effect. In less than half a day, he had completed the tempering of the true essence by merely reciting the primary outline of the Great Tao without comprehending the slightest bit of it. He had tempered all the longevity art true essence in his Dantian into the stellar art true essence. He had finished changing his cultivation method. After completing the tempering, Chen Hao naturally woke up. When he found that his vital essence had not reached the full state of his realm, he once again experienced the mystery of the primary outline of the Great Tao. He took out 2 mid-grade primordial crystal stones and recited the primary outline of the Great Tao while absorbing the energy of the primordial crystal stones, refining the pure energy of heaven and earth into his own vital essence. What shocked Chen Hao the most was that an ordinary early-stage nascent soul realm cultivator would need 2 to 4 hours to completely absorb these 2 mid-grade primal crystal stones, but in less than a few minutes, they were completely absorbed. This increased the refining speed by dozens of times, and Chen Hao's true essence reserves in his dantian had reached the peak of the early-stage nascent soul realm. Taking advantage of the time he still had, Chen Hao directly filled the bathtub with spirit spring water. Naked, he sat cross-legged in the spirit spring water, immersing himself in a state of cultivation. However, this time, he did not practice any unique skill. He chanted the general principles of the Great Tao over and over again. In fact, Chen Hao did not even try to comprehend it. Over this period of time, Chen Hao had come to understand that the general outline of the Great Tao was too profound for him. It wasn't that his perception was lacking, but rather that his cultivation level was not high enough. It was as if he was separated by several mountains. He could recognize every word and understand every sentence, but he couldn't recognize the words. Similarly, Chen Hao did not have any thoughts about breaking through to the early-stage nascent soul realm. It was definitely not something that could be done in a short period of time. Therefore, this time, he truly had no desires. Perhaps it was this kind of mentality that allowed Chen Hao to miraculously and inconceivably advance to the middle-stage nascent soul realm. Epiphany. Yes, epiphany. As he recited it over and over again, Chen Hao once again encountered an epiphany that all cultivators dreamed of and that many cultivators would never encounter in their entire lives. Not only was the large pool of spirit spring water completely absorbed, even the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the vicinity of the palace was sucked dry. When the great elder rushed back to call Chen Hao, it was precisely when Chen Hao broke through from the early-stage nascent soul realm to the middle stage, and also when the epiphany had just ended. Chen Hao did not hide it. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why he advanced so quickly. Even if he was a monster, it was impossible to directly advance from the early-stage nascent soul realm to the middle-stage nascent soul realm in 2 or 3 days. This was absolutely impossible. Of course, in reality, Chen Hao did not need to explain. However, if he did not explain, what would happen if everyone saw him as a monster? The people of the star-picking sect were naturally envious, jealous, and hateful. Long Yakong was even more defeated. Meeting such a monster, how could he not be convinced? Especially in the past 2 days, he had deeply felt how great Chen Hao's reputation was in the cultivation world. As for Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian, the 3 of them were pleasantly surprised for Chen Hao. However, only Xia Yu did not have any scruples and intimately praised Chen Hao. After an hour, it was finally the 3rd-rank sect's turn to take the test. In the 2nd-rank sect, the passing rate was several times higher than in the 1st-rank sect. Most sects could have at least 1 person pass, and there were also 2, but it was not many. However, after the 3rd-rank sect began, it was obvious that the passing rate had increased by a large margin. Every sect had more than 10 or 20 people participating in the test, and there were basically 3 or 4 who passed, with the highest passing rate reaching 7. The highest result was also continuously set new records. A half-step incarnation realm disciple lit up 86 stones. This result was definitely high. After all, an early incarnation realm disciple could only light up around 90 stones. Moreover, the higher one went, the harder it was. Even if it was just 1 more stone, one's strength would have to be significantly higher. In the 8th batch, which was close to the end of the 3rd-rank sect's test, the presiding elder finally pointed to the peak existence of the 3rd-rank sect, the star-picking sect. Voila! Without any warning, the entire martial arts arena burst into a buzz of discussion. Although everyone's voice was very soft, there were many people. Even the 8th and 9th rank sects were no exception. This was definitely an unprecedented situation since the start of the test. It's finally the star-picking sect. I wonder how many stones that Chen Hao can light up? His aura is already at the mid-nascent soul realm. It's hard to say. This kind of person is not someone we can estimate. However, no matter how awesome he is, he can't exceed 90 stones. Aren't you talking nonsense? 90 stones can only be achieved at the early incarnation realm. Although this Chen Hao is strong, it's impossible for him to have the attack power of the incarnation realm at the mid-nascent soul realm. I guess 88 stones is slightly better than a half-step incarnation realm disciple. I want to see how many stones this kid can light up. Bullshit. The top inner disciple of the Eastern continent reached the mid-nascent soul realm in just half a year. I don't know how much the star-picking sect has spent to help him. Even if he can surpass his level, how much can he surpass? The floating mist sect's disciple, Guhi, looked at Chen Hao with disdain. Guhi, if you were at the early nascent soul realm and the floating mist sect paid a huge price, would you be able to advance from the early nascent soul realm to the mid-nascent soul realm in 2 days? Gu Xing, who usually didn't speak much, suddenly said after hearing Gu He's words. After seeing Gu He speechless, he continued, in the Sky City's potential test, he obtained 6th place with the cultivation of the late Golden Core realm and killed the top genius of the Southern Sea Islands 9th rank sect. It's definitely not luck. Even if I don't say it, you should know how many people wanted to kill him in the Sky City, including you. But he's still fine. Don't underestimate him. If there are no accidents, he can light up 90 stones, or even more. How is that possible? Even if it's me. How can you compare to him? I don't believe it, then just watch. Gu Xing didn't say anything else. If Gu He wasn't his cousin, he wouldn't even give a damn. Similar discussions broke out in countless sections. They all revolved around Chen Hao, and occasionally, it would turn to Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian. After all, although the two of them didn't have any achievements in the cultivation world, their age, cultivation level and appearance were dazzling, especially since they were close to Chen Hao. The Ling Tian sect's disciples were also in high spirits as they waited for Chen Hao's performance. Especially Xia Yuyu, Duan Yufei, and Xia Lanlan were looking forward to it. Leng Yihan was also looking forward to it and feeling nervous. Hiss hiss hiss. Under the lead of the Grand Elder, the star-picking sect's disciples flew to the center of the training field. There were a total of 31 people. Just this lineup alone was the sect with the most disciples since the beginning of the assessment. Chen Hao, I've already told them that no matter what, they have to give it their all in this assessment and display their strongest attack. Even if they're disqualified, their results will still be recorded in the sect's records. Don't hold back. Although the sect leader didn't tell you, he has the highest hopes for you. The Grand Elder stared at Chen Hao with a fervent gaze as he said in a low voice, 4th Elder and 7th Elder have been investigating the participating disciples for the past 2 days. They'll tell you about it when the time comes. Don't worry, Grand Elder. I know what to do. Chen Hao smiled lightly as his eyes shone with confidence. Pull back? There was no need for that. This was only a test of attack power. Although it could roughly measure one's combat strength, that was only for ordinary disciples. Sword Dao realm, attribute, and so on couldn't be reflected here. It didn't matter even if he used the platinum sky-splitting slash. He only wanted to test his attack power. He had 100 ways to hide his true trump card. After the last disciple of the 3rd rank sect finished his assessment, Long Yakong, who was half a step away from sky-splitting slash, was the first to walk out. His aura instantly soared to the limit. With a loud roar, he used his strongest technique and slashed out. 86. Chen Hao's powerful soul perception sensed Long Yukong's aura. Before the latter's attack even hit the lamp, he said with absolute certainty in his mind. Chen Hao only needed to look at a few dozen people to make such a clear judgment. Even the Grand Elder didn't have this ability. Boom. After a loud bang, the purple crystals lit up from the bottom to the top. At first, the speed was fast, but it gradually slowed down. Finally, when the 86th crystal lit up, it stopped. Good job, Yakong. The Grand Elder praised. Do you want to try? That's my limit. Long Yakong smiled proudly. Although he didn't break the previous record, he still exceeded the standard of half a step away from sky-splitting slash by 85 crystals. Following that, the other disciples used their strongest attacks. However, only 6 of the 27 disciples, including Long Yakong, passed the test and advanced to the official competition. However, 6th place was already a very good result for a 3rd-grade sect. The Grand Elder had a smile on his face. Second update. That's it for today. Don't wait. Next month, Dark Mountain will go all out. Thank you for your votes and tips. Thank you. Chapter 3:13. I'll go first. Yi Feishue stood at the very back with Chen Hao, Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian. After she finished speaking, she walked to the side of the test lamp. Yi Feishue used to be ranked 6th among the core disciples, but she was now at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, second only to Long Yakong. Sensing the powerful aura from Yi Feishue, the smile on Great Elder's face widened. The result was 81 crystals, exceeding the peak of the late nascent soul stage. She became the 7th person in the star-picking sect to pass the test and was temporarily ranked 2nd. The moment Tan Tai Lian appeared, a blue flame rose from her graceful figure. She was only at the peak of the early nascent soul stage. If she wanted to light up 70 crystals, which only the peak of the middle golden core stage could do, she had to show her true strength. Moreover, she had to do her best for the sect's results. When she was 100 feet away, Tan Tai Lian, who was surrounded by flames, suddenly sped up. She used the 7 stars footwork technique and held the 7 stars sword finger. In an instant, 6 shadows seemed to appear, faintly echoing Tan Tai Lian. When she was close to the test tower, Tan Tai Lian's blue crystal finger violently pointed. Bang! She's so strong. Amazing! As expected of the Phoenix inheritance and the 7 stars unique skill. I wonder how many crystals she can light up? When Tan Tai Lian made her move, the crowd burst into exclamations. It was no secret in the cultivation world that Tan Tai Lian and Chen Hao had obtained the Phoenix's inheritance. Similarly, ever since Chen Hao came out of the 7 stars cave heaven and revealed the 7 stars sword finger when he killed Fan Fong, it had also spread. Not bad. In these few months, Xiao Yan's strength has improved again. 80 crystals. Xiaowu, how many can you light up? When the purple crystal stone continued to shine upwards and didn't stop, Chen Hao whispered to Helian Wuzi beside him. Higher than her. Helian Wuzi said confidently, looking at Xiao Yan who was as cold as the moon. Xiaowu, you two are like enemies. Aren't you tired? It's just a small misunderstanding. We still have a lot of time to spend together in the future. You're good, she's good, I'm good, everyone's good. That's really good, long live harmony. Chen Hao said with a smile on his face that made Helian Wuzi feel strange. Just then, Tan Tai Lian's results came out. She was at 80. She was at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm, but she had reached the standard of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. It was quite shocking. Take care of yourself. I'm starting. Helian Wuzi glared at Chen Hao. She welcomed Helian Wuzi who had returned and walked out. Her speed wasn't fast, but with every step she took, the aura around her body would rise by a notch. Boundless true origin burned fiercely within her body. It's only 80 pills, what's so difficult about that? She has improved a lot, but I have improved even more. Helian Wuzi thought to herself as if she was fighting spirit. She raised the power of her whole body to the limit. Before the battle with Chen Hao last time, Helian Wuzi only had a high level of cultivation. She hadn't cultivated to a higher level of consummate skill. However, when Chen Hao went into seclusion and Yuan Tairan came back to train the disciples who were qualified to participate in the competition, he had already given her the top heaven-level consummate skill of the star-picking sect, the cloud-splitting sword technique. The cloud-splitting sword technique was a few levels higher than the basic consummate skill of the star-picking sect's outer disciples, the star-picking sect's consummate skill of the system. It was also the most suitable consummate skill of the star-picking sect for those between the late stage of the nascent soul realm and the late stage of the incarnation realm. Helian Wuzi had already cultivated it to the realm of great success. How much could her strength increase? She stabbed out with her sword. The cold moonlight sword, which was only a low-grade spiritual weapon, suddenly emitted a huge round moon. Even the sunlight couldn't hide its brilliance and light. It was as if it had broken through layers of dark clouds, blooming its brilliance. Streams of cold energy condensed and didn't dissipate. With a boom, it collided with the test lamp. 86 pills. It exceeded the half-step to the incarnation realm by 1 pill. It was the same result as Long Yakong. Both of them are very strong. When the crowd burst into discussion again, Xia Yuyu, who was far away, stared at Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lien with her clear and beautiful eyes. Her delicate lips curled up slightly with a sweet smile as she thought to herself. There was no hostility. It wasn't easy to display strength that exceeded one's realm. This was far more difficult than possessing battle strength that exceeded one's realm. After all, this was a contest of pure attack power. Tan Tai Lien and Helian Wuzi had done it, and they had exceeded one's realm by a lot. It's finally Chen Hao's turn. Although the two women were surprising, there was no doubt that Chen Hao was the one that everyone was looking forward to the most. This had nothing to do with realm. Even killing Fan Fong was negligible. The most important thing was the city in the sky. Everyone was looking forward to seeing how Chen Hao, who had obtained the 6th place in the potential test with the strength of the late stage of the Golden Core realm, and who had killed several top geniuses of the South Sea Islands' 9th-rank sects, would perform this time. Rumors were rumors after all. Although they were confirmed to be true, most people couldn't believe it until they saw Chen Hao's true strength. Even Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, Tan Tai Lien, Leng Yihan, Duan Yufei, and Xia Lan Lan were all staring at Chen Hao and holding their breaths. Yuan Tai ran on the rostrum, the great elder standing in the team, and the 4th elder and the 7th elder who were checking on the other disciples in the martial arts practice field, were all full of anticipation. Naturally, the huge martial arts practice field, which was originally filled with discussion, fell into a strange silence. Clang! Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, Chen Hao didn't give people too much suspense. His handsome face was as calm as water. He took a step forward, drew his sword, attacked, and sheathed it in one breath. The speed was neither fast nor slow. It seemed like a casual and simple sword. In fact, it was indeed the most basic sword move, the thrust of the solitary sword technique. However, it was this simple sword move that made the eyes of some of the true experts shine with a hint of admiration. Because, at this moment, even they couldn't find any flaws in Chen Hao's body. Bang! The moment the 5 elements sword touched the test lamp, it suddenly shook violently. A majestic, terrifying, and incomparably fierce aura suddenly spread out at this moment, instantly sweeping thousands of feet away. Some of the disciples who were closer to Chen Hao opened their eyes wide in shock under this terrifying aura. The star-picking sect disciples closest to him, including the great elder, felt their hearts skip a beat. Then, their faces shone with intense joy. The huge semicircular test lamps, which looked like wind shields, lit up from the bottom to the top. 10, 20, 30, 70, 80. It was only at the 80th point that the speed began to slow down. However, with this momentum, everyone knew that Chen Hao's result would create a new high since the beginning of the test. As for how high it would be, it was not something they could judge. In a breath's time, the number rose to 90 amidst the gasps of the crowd. But it still didn't stop. Even though the lighting speed was getting slower and slower, how is this possible? How is this possible? When it reached 93 and didn't stop, Gu He was so shocked that he was dumbfounded. He clenched his fists tightly. Even Gu Xing, who had always been silent beside Gu He and had no psychological changes, had an extremely shocked look in his eyes. Similarly, Chu Qingtian and the rest, who had already planned to kill Chen Hao, were also dumbfounded. Chu Qingtian wanted to kill Chen Hao because he was worried that Chen Hao's potential would replace him as the top person in the Eastern continent and steal his glory and fortune. As for Qin Shui, she was a small matter. But he had never thought highly of Chen Hao. After all, with his current cultivation and strength, Chen Hao couldn't be compared to him at all. But now, 95. Oh my god, oh my god. Am I seeing things? Too awesome. Motherfucker, is he still human? Could it be that the test lamp is broken? Broken my ass. The test lamp is a spiritual treasure, not a spiritual weapon. What kind of monster is he? I have already gathered my strength to the maximum. I have combined my physical body and true origin. I have also used the platinum sky-splitting slash and the solitary sword technique. Not bad. Before the results were shown, Chen Hao already knew his result. 95. The power of a middle-stage avatar. This was indeed Chen Hao's maximum attack power. And Chen Hao was very satisfied. The test lamp was a dead object after all. Sword Dao attributes, willpower, and the laws of heaven and earth were all useless. Freak. When Chen Hao returned to Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian's side, the two girls actually said to Chen Hao at the same time. But the two beautiful little faces obviously had a trace of excitement and joy. After saying that, they probably didn't expect the other party to have the same mentality as them. They looked at each other at the same time and laughed out. What are you talking about? This is called amazing. Seeing the two of them turn sunny, Chen Hao's mood was also very good. He opened his hands and patted the two girls' heads at the same time with a trace of pride. How, you're really amazing. Yu Yu is starting to worship you. But now, compared to Yu Yu, you're still a little lacking. Yu Yu, aren't you talking nonsense? You're already at the late-stage avatar, you have the nerve to compete with me in strength? Realm is also a kind of strength, why can't we compete? How, you didn't expect you to be so powerful. If possible, try your best to get a ranking, okay? If you can get into the top 4? Top 4? What's the benefit of being in the top 4? Chen Hao asked. Even if Yu Yu did not mention it, Chen Hao was also aiming for the peak. However, Yu Yu's words made Chen Hao vaguely feel that there seemed to be something unknown about being in the top 4. Yu Yu doesn't know the details, but if we get into the top 4, we can be together, huh? Yu Yu, do you mean that if we get into the top 4, your Ling Tian sect will allow us to? Chen Hao was shocked. Not that kind of together, we can go out of the eastern continent and have fun together. When Xia Yu Yu heard Chen Hao's voice transmission, her beautiful little face that was hidden under the veil blushed slightly. First update. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. Thank you to the brothers and sisters who voted and tipped. Thank you. Please support my brothers and sisters to read the original version. Thank you. Chapter 3:14. The buzzing of exclamations and discussions filled every corner of the training field. Even the high and mighty sect leaders on the rostrum were shocked. The sect leader of Ling Tian sect, Xia Lingfeng, who was sitting on one of the 10 main seats on the rostrum, stared at Chen Hao from afar. A hint of shock and joy flashed in his eyes. If he did not stop him, Yu's father, Xia Yutang, would not have let Chen Hao go. Yu was blessed by the heavens. How could he let someone who disturbed Yu exist? It was not that Xia Lingfeng did not have the intention to kill Chen Hao at that time, but he held it in. He knew that since Chen Hao and Yu obtained the inheritance at the same time and crossed paths, he must have had an even more shocking opportunity. Although it was not much at that time, there might be a miracle. Moreover, if he really killed Chen Hao at that time, it was equivalent to cutting off Yu's luck and opportunity. It was because of this that he stopped Xia Yutang. Now, the miracle was right in front of him. I didn't expect this kid's attack to reach the intermediate stage of the embodiment stage. However, this is even better. There's hope that we'll meet again. Chu Qingtian's eyes flashed coldly as he thought to himself. Qingdun. At this moment, an old man's voice suddenly entered Chu Qingtian's ears. There's news from the Wan Tong Trading Company? However, it failed. I'm afraid we can only look for it from that kid, Chen Hao. Failed? How's that possible? He's just a sectless cultivator, and the Wan Tong Trading Company can't find him? And they even announced a failure? Chu Qingtian frowned and transmitted his voice in surprise. The Wan Tong Trading Company was known to be omnipotent in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. As long as one could afford it, they could get any information they wanted. For many years, there had never been any news that the Wan Tong Trading Company could not buy anything. How could they announce a failure? I find it strange too. What did they say? They didn't say anything. They just announced that the mission failed. They immediately refunded the deposit and stopped accepting the mission. Qing, I feel strange about this. Could it be that Chen Shui isn't as simple as she seems? What do you mean? The Wan Tong Trading Company should increase the price if they find the mission difficult. But it would not declare failure. Furthermore, The deadline of our mission is the end of the intersect competition. But it's only been 3 days. Could it be that Qin Shui's identity made the Myriad Links Trading Company give up? The old man transmitted. Impossible. Chu Qinggan muttered to himself for a while before his eyes lit up. You don't have to worry about this. I have my ways. Amidst the buzz of discussion, the test began again. Not long after, Chen Hao left on his own while everyone was puzzled. For many of the disciples, there was no difference between cultivating and not cultivating at this point. After all, the official competition was just around the corner. With such a mentality, how could cultivation have any effect? He might as well stay here and watch others perform. One had to know that during the test, every disciple displayed their strongest attack. It was almost as if they were watching everyone perform their ultimate skills. Even though everyone knew that the real battle would be different from now, they would at least be able to understand a thing or two, right? Once they met, they would be mentally prepared, but Chen Hao was different. Firstly, he had just stepped into the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Although his realm had been consolidated, it was only a consolidated realm. With the increase of his realm, the accompanying trump card would definitely change. While there was still time, Chen Hao had to completely control his soaring true essence as soon as possible and familiarize himself with his current situation. Only when he had a clear grasp of himself would he be able to target his opponents in the upcoming battle. Just after Chen Hao left, Leng Yihan, who was sitting cross-legged at the front of the 7th grade sect, the Myriad Pill Pavilion, was constantly emitting a cold and sharp aura. He pursed his thin lips, his sword-like eyebrows slightly furrowed, and his eyes flickered as if he had fallen into deep thought. 95 pills. Just by combining the solitary sword technique and the platinum sky-splitting slash, his attack power has reached the middle stage of the incarnation realm. How can it be like this every time? I don't care. This time, no matter what, I have to. Leng Yihan tightly grasped the jade-like hand that resembled a woman's and took a deep breath. He transmitted a message to the sect elders and left the martial arts practice field. When the test ended that day, all the big and small taverns and tea houses in the entire Dongxian city were filled with people. Moreover, the topic of discussion was basically about this year's sect national competition. Chen Hao's name was undoubtedly the most frequently mentioned name tonight. His name was already well known in the eastern continent. Moreover, everyone knew that as long as there were no accidents, Chen Hao's future growth would definitely be terrifying. It was also something that many people could not imagine. However, at the beginning, Chen Hao could not become the focus of this year's sect national competition. After all, his realm was obvious. However, the terrifying power that Chen Hao displayed today had allowed Chen Hao to step into the ranks of the 4 great masters, Xia Yu, Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing. It's definitely not the 4 great young masters this time. Ling Tian Sect's Xia Yuyu has a 60% chance of winning first place and becoming the first female young master in the history of the sect national competition. We have to change the way we address her. Should we call her young lady? Bullshit, young lady is too ordinary. I think it's better to call her big sister. However, I'm afraid the 60% you said is inaccurate. Although Xia Yuyu's realm is at the late stage of the incarnation stage, her cultivation path is like a flower in a greenhouse. How can she be compared to Chu Qingtian and the rest? Moreover, Chu Qingtian has already stepped into the peak of the intermediate stage of the incarnation stage. Coupled with the Origin Gate's powerful ultimate technique, he's definitely not inferior to Xia Yuyu. It's hard to say who will win. That's true. No matter what, no one can threaten Xia Yuyu and Chu Qingtian. The first and second places are for sure. Wu Ruochen and Gu Xing have also stepped into the peak of the intermediate stage of the incarnation stage. Although the other top geniuses of the grade 9 sect's core disciples are a threat, they're not that big of a threat. Basically, no one can threaten them, right? After all, the entire cultivation world knows about these people. However, with the power that Chen Hao from the star-picking sect displayed today, I think there's some hope. Impossible. I admit that Chen Hao is definitely the top genius in our eastern continent for the past 100 years. However, There's no hope for him in this year's intersect competition. Although his attack power has reached the peak of the intermediate stage of the incarnation stage, that's only the standard. It's definitely not as good as Gu Xing and Wu Ruochen. Moreover, attack power is not combat power. That Chen Hao is just advanced. What kind of ultimate technique can he cultivate? What ultimate technique does the star-picking sect have that's stronger than a grade 9 sect? I know that he can at most reach the top 10. Top 4 is out of the question. What you said makes sense. However, don't forget that such a top genius is usually not someone we can measure. Let's wait and see. I actually hope that Chen Hao will be awesome. Defeating a grade 9 sect is something that hasn't happened in hundreds of years. It'll definitely be satisfying. This means that our low-level sects aren't bad either, right? After Leng Yihan left, he didn't return to his residence. Instead, he blended into the world and flew towards the outskirts of Dongxian City at an astonishing speed. No one knew Chen Hao's combat talent better than he did. Originally, he didn't even think about reaching a higher level. After all, even if he had a great secret, it wasn't a good thing to advance too quickly. However, after seeing the power Chen Hao displayed today, Leng Yihan stubbornly wanted to go against his master's wishes, he thought, or rather, she wanted to walk on the same level as Chen Hao. Because that feeling was very good. Moreover, she clearly felt that she would gain more than she would lose by doing so. The next day, after the grade 6 sect test, it was time for the grade 7 sections. The number of people in each sect increased. At this moment, in the area where the Myriad Pill Pavilion was located, the two leading elders were burning with anxiety. Especially when they saw that it was almost their turn to go on stage, they were even more anxious. This was because Leng Yihan had left early yesterday and hadn't returned yet. Where did he go? What was he going to do? No one knew. Leng Yihan was now the strongest disciple in the Myriad Pill Pavilion. If he was absent, the loss would be too great. In less than an hour, when it was almost the Myriad Pill Pavilion's turn, a figure arrived at the Myriad Pill Pavilion's area as fast as lightning. The powerful aura instantly caused the surrounding people to widen their eyes in shock. Incarnation Realm. After entering the Myriad Pill Pavilion, the most mysterious person, Leng Yihan, who had only recently appeared, caused a huge commotion in the Myriad Pill Pavilion. At this moment, this commotion directly swept through countless sects. Then, Leng Yihan casually lit up 96 purple crystals with a sword strike, breaking Chen Hao's record and causing the entire martial arts practice field to explode. When Leng Yihan became the focus of everyone's discussion, the news that Leng Yihan and Chen Hao were tied for first and second place in the 100 Empire ranking was once again revealed. This caused Leng Yihan, who had been completely overshadowed by Chen Hao's brilliance, to once again emit a bright light that shook the entire cultivation world. In one fell swoop, he was no less than Chen Hao's level. Tentai Lien, who was familiar with Leng Yihan, was shocked. After the shock, a sly smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She really wanted to know what expression Chen Hao would have when he received this news. It had to be said that even Tentai Lien felt that Leng Yihan had abnormal thoughts about Chen Hao. Moreover, she was more certain than Chen Hao and Yang Fan because this was the most terrifying intuition of a woman in this regard. In the blink of an eye, another day had passed. As the grade of the sects tested increased, the strength of the disciples tested became more and more terrifying. All kinds of powerful consummate skills shook everyone's heart and made them incomparably shocked. When it came to the last 10 ninth grade sects, the entire field exploded. Second update. That's all for today. It's the last day to relax before going all out next month. I'll issue a single chapter to settle the accounts later and update my statement next month. Thank you friends who tipped and voted. Chapter 315. There's really no comparison. The 10 great grade 9 sects have not been able to shake their positions for hundreds of years. The grade 8 sects don't even have a third of their numbers, let alone us. This is the general trend. They'll only get stronger and stronger. Which super genius in the Eastern continent doesn't want to enter a grade 9 sect? The aptitudes of the disciples they recruit are much stronger than ours. Moreover, the gap will only get bigger and bigger until it's impossible to overcome. When the 10 great grade 9 sects appeared one after another and lined up in front of the 10 test lights, the entire training field was in a heated discussion. The Spirit Serpent Valley had more than 200 people. The Origin School had the most with almost 500 people. Fortunately, even though there were many grade 9 sects, only a few of them had stepped into the incarnation stage. 3 from the Origin School, 2 from the Sky Sword sect, 2 from the Floating Mist sect, and 2 from the Ling Tian sect. The other 6 great grade 9 sects, including the Spirit Serpent Valley, had 1 each. Xia Yuyu appeared before Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing. Even the veil on her face could not hide her peerless beauty. Her jade-like hand did not move at all. She did not even use any ultimate technique. With just a casual palm strike, she lit up the limit that no one could surpass. 100 stones. What did this mean? It meant that Xia Yuyu's true attack power definitely exceeded 100 stones. As for how much it exceeded, it was not something that anyone could predict. Not bad, not bad. Brother Xia, your precious granddaughter is really compatible with Qingtian. If I remember correctly, your granddaughter is turning 20 this year, right? Just as Xia Yuyu casually lit up 100 stones, Yin Sangqiong, the sect master of the Origin School, stroked his long beard with a smile on his face as he looked at Xia Lingfeng. Brother Yin, you flatter me. Yuyu will turn 20 in a few months. Xia Lingfeng smiled. On the surface, there was nothing unusual, but in his heart he was conflicted. He knew his granddaughter the best and understood her the most. Therefore, even he could not act arbitrarily now. When he stood up for Chen Hao because of Fan Fong, it meant that Xia Lingfeng was beginning to let go. The day before yesterday, Chen Hao had displayed a strength that was several times stronger than his cultivation level. Xia Lingfeng had almost loosened his grip on Chen Hao. Although it didn't mean that they would accept Chen Hao, they had to start weighing Chen Hao's value in the future. This was something that the sect master had to consider. Everything had to be done in the interest of the sect. Not bad, not bad. If there are no surprises, the first and second place will be Qingtian and Yuyu. As for who will be the first, it will depend on how these two little fellows fight. Brother Xia, why don't we settle the matter after the competition? In this way, their strength and mental state will surely improve once more. Brother Yin, Yuyu has never experienced anything, so she doesn't have any concept of love. If it's too fast, it won't be a good thing. Moreover, I also asked about it indirectly. Even if it was me, it would not be good for me to forcefully interfere. However, I believe that with Qingtian's strength, talent, and appearance, you will definitely be able to gain Yuyu's favor. So, Brother Yin, it's better that we don't interfere. Let these young people train themselves. Wouldn't that be better? That's right. Brother Xia is right. Ruochen has been admiring your precious granddaughter for a long time. Moreover, it's not right for us to interfere with the matters of the younger generation. Moreover, a forcibly picked melon won't be sweet, right? Only when they are truly in love with each other can they truly reap the benefits. The sect master of Sky Sword sect said. That's what I meant. Xia Lingfeng hurriedly replied. Since all of you have said so, let them be. With Qingtian's strength, why would he be afraid of others competing with him? Wu Ruochen, who was next, didn't disappoint. Although his performance wasn't as relaxed as Xia Yuyu, he also lit up 100 crystals. Gu Xing was on par with Wu Ruochen. He also used a terrifying technique and lit up 100 crystals. Yuan Gate had the most people, and Chu Qingtian was standing at the back. He was the last disciple to take the test. Under everyone's gazes, Chu Qingtian exuded a domineering aura. He also waved his hand casually, and rows of purple crystals lit up one after another at a shocking speed. Soon, 100 of them had bloomed. In the incomparably huge cultivation room, there were streaks of ever-changing sword light drifting about. Sometimes they were fierce and violent, sometimes they were ethereal and gentle, and sometimes they would release streaks of resplendent and dazzling white light, causing all the sword light to instantly disappear. Sometimes they would release billowing pitch-black smoke that covered the sky and the sun, causing the entire cultivation room to be immersed in boundless darkness. Chen Hao, who was shirtless, had been immersed in this state for 2 days and 2 nights. He was trying his best to discover all the abilities that he could use. When the sun rose and illuminated the entire Dongxian city, Chen Hao, who was immersed in his cultivation, finally stopped. Phew! Letting out a long sigh, Chen Hao's eyes flickered with a wisp of confidence. Although the offensive strength of the Platinum Sky Split is still only able to light up 95 stars, the battle prowess after fusing various profundities is absolutely not something that offensive strength can compare to. Moreover, I've already mastered the ultimate move, and I can use it 5 times in succession, Chen Hao thought to himself. After going through the baptism of heaven's punishment, his sword realm and attributes did not increase. His understanding of the wind and space attributes did not increase either. However, after 2 days of targeted cultivation, Chen Hao believed that his combat power would not be lower than any mid-stage incarnation realm cultivator. In particular, Chen Hao picked up the true essences of darkness and light that he hadn't touched for a long time, causing his attacks to become even more unpredictable. The darkness and light attributes were comprehended by Chen Hao and Chen Shui in the level 4 cave abode in the ancient Black Wind Cave. Although their realms were very low, these 2 attributes were second only to the space attribute and the time attribute that only existed in legends. It's a pity that my sword realm is too weak. Moreover, it's not under my control at all. This is so fucking weird. Chen Hao clearly felt that his sword realm had already given birth to a trace of sword realm will. However, this will was not under Chen Hao's control at all. It changed at any time and place on its own. It was like a temperamental, resentful woman. Chen Hao had no choice but to change his attack style according to its changes. Otherwise, it would really be a David. Chen Hao couldn't possibly be fierce when it was gentle, and gentle when it was fierce. That would be the opposite of what he wanted. Chen Hao, come here for a while. Just as Chen Hao pushed open the door of the cultivation room and was about to take a breather, Yuan Tyron's voice sounded. Obviously, he had been paying attention to Chen Hao's situation. Chen Hao responded. He put on the star-picking robe and walked out of his palace. Seeing that Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien were walking together, and when the others also walked out of their palaces, Chen Hao smiled slightly. His figure flashed, and he came to the side of the 2 women. He said, "You've made up." Hearing Chen Hao's words, the 2 girls blushed. Immediately, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lien looked at each other. They grabbed Chen Hao's arm at the same time and pinched Chen Hao's waist. Cough cough. What are you doing? Chen Hao grabbed the 2 little hands as fast as lightning. He was a little surprised. You lied to me. You said that Xiao Wu agreed. Tantai Lien said. You tricked us. Helian Wuzi also stared at Chen Hao and said. This is called lying and also called tricking? Don't you think it's fine now? All right, the sect leader is calling. Let's go. Chen Hao let go of their hands. His figure swayed, and he was a few meters away from them. He took the lead and walked into the hall of the palace. When he found out that Xia Yuyu, Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and Wu Ruochen had all lit up 100 stones, Chen Hao was a little surprised. Especially when he heard that Xia Yuyu and Chu Qingtian had only casually attacked. This surprised Chen Hao even more. This guy did not seem to realize what it meant for him to light up 95 stones when he was only in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. He only realized that there was a big gap between his attack power and theirs. After all, it was extremely difficult to light up 1 more stone. Not to mention that Xia Yuyu and Chu Qingtian had casually lit up 100 stones. However, what shocked Chen Hao even more was when he heard that Leng Yihan had stepped into the early stage of the incarnation realm and had lit up 96 stones. This was too freakish, wasn't it? Just like Xia Yuyu said, one's realm was also a kind of strength. Before coming to Dongxian City, Chen Hao originally thought that Leng Yihan, who had stepped into the world of cultivation at the same time as him, had been left far behind. However, when he first met him, Chen Hao knew that although Leng Yihan did not have any reputation in the world of cultivation, he had quietly reached the peak of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. But that was not all. How could he have stepped into the incarnation realm in just 3 or 4 days? This was too freaking fast. Chen Hao, your battle power, what level has it reached? What are your goals for this competition? After the 4th elder and the 7th elder explained the general situation of the participating disciples, especially those who were on par with the disciples of the star-picking sect, Yuan Tairan could not help but ask. There was nothing he could do about it. Chen Hao was too mysterious even for him, the sect master. He was unable to measure Chen Hao's strength. He could clearly see Chen Hao's cultivation level, but his battle prowess was something that could not be measured without a real battle. This was especially true for a monstrous genius like Chen Hao, who was rarely seen in hundreds of years. Don't worry, sect leader. I will do my best. As for what level I can reach, I can't say for now, but I should be able to fight in the incarnation realm. That's good, that's good. The competition will officially begin in 5 days. If you need anything, just say it. No matter what it is, as long as the star-picking sect can do it, we will satisfy you. Also, Yakong, Xiaowu, Xiaolian, Fei Xue, and the rest of you, if you have any requests, quickly think about it. Tomorrow, Dongxian City will hold the grandest auction in the Eastern continent. It is specifically for the competition and will last until the day before the inter-sect competition. When the time comes, I will take you to see it, Yuan Tairan said to the 10 people who had qualified for the competition. I don't lack anything, Chen Hao said directly. He did not lack anything, but he lacked time. Soon, Long Yukong and the others also expressed that they did not lack anything. However, Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian looked like they wanted to say something. First update. I will explode today. I will not stop writing for a moment. Looking for subscriptions, referral tickets, monthly tickets. Thank you that you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.